Welcome back to the party, everybody. This is Morty, and I am your host, Sludge, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Everybody hit that like and subscribe. You know I would do it for you, and let's party! Big shout out to the replay gang. Thank you so much for coming back to watch this. Even though you missed the live party, guys, that is the best part. So make sure you are here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and sometimes whenever I feel like it. Maybe tomorrow. So hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, and you will never miss an Indian Jesus live party ever again. Let's also say thank you to my6shirt.com, the only place to get your very own The Indian Jesus official merch. Only at my6shirt.com. And of course, don't forget, every single donation, super chat, whatever, comes with a duck recipe treat for my co-host Morty. Welcome to the party. We got Melted Mind Media in the building. We got Basil the Pumpkin Seagull in the building. We got Zippy reporting in. Welcome to the party, guys. So let's just jump right into this. So you guys know how debate and the art of conversation is something that's very, very, very important to me, and I feel like it's something that we've just completely lost. And Destiny, the streamer, is one of these people who I think does really well with the art of debate, whether or not you agree with his politics or not. But he was in this debate, about crime and race, and that's not even really relevant. But whoever edited this video, I don't know if it was Destiny's team or if it was somebody else, but this is amazing. So let's just dive right in. As always, if you cannot hear the video, please do let me know.
Sure. So probably before we get into this, I guess it's probably important to arrive at what do we consider to be systemic racism?
So we can see everything laid out here, the debate topic, and they're starting with, are the police systemically racist?
We probably need to agree on the definition of this before we have a back and forth.
So as you'll see,
I can posit a definition and you can attack it, or you can tell me your definition and I can attack it. Either way works for me.
I mean, it's just racism that's embedded.
So now, as Destiny offers the question, again, I don't know who did this editing, but they go through the whole thing like this. So now we have a visual representation of the words that are happening. I know a lot of people are not as good audio learners, and to be able to see things like this, again, I don't know where it came from, but this is it. So question is, what is the definition of systematic racism?
The actual definition is racism that's embedded through laws and regulations of either government or organizations.
True. So one of the important things about systemic racism, though, is that none of the laws or regulations that are embedded have to be explicitly racist. They might just produce what would be considered racist outcomes. So, for instance,
like I said earlier, though, racist outcomes does not indicate racism to begin with.
Not necessarily, but it could, right?
So, yeah, but the proof would be on you to prove that it does.
Shout out to Guam Tech. Welcome to the party. So as you can see, in real time, obviously it's not real time. Somebody went back and edited this from a while back. But you're seeing the visualization of the conversation actually happening on screen. And so the things that I tried to break down and show you guys, it's all here. Welcome to the party. Zippy said it's nice, like GUI-based coding and scripting. There you go. And if whatever is your best way to learn this stuff, this is what you need to learn. This is what you need to know in order to have a productive conversation with somebody who may not agree with you.
Because, I mean, there's no actual evidence of that.
True.
Aha. So now Lisa is correct. The burden of proof falls on the person making the affirmative claim. And so if the claim is that racist outcomes do not mean racist intent, then the claim from Destiny's original question, it's Destiny's responsibility to prove that. She doesn't have to have something that says that, it's not. It's Destiny's claim, and therefore the burden of proof is on Destiny.
I agree. So a systemically racist law might be one that seems to target Black people in an unfair way for a reason that doesn't really make sense. The outcome isn't really justified for anything good in society. And I agree that the onus would be probably on me to try to point out, like, what are some areas that I feel are exemplary of, like, systemic racism in ways that,
I mean,
like,
I can help you. I'll give you an example. Well, so right now, on the books, right now, like, more white people use cocaine, more Black people statistically use crack.
And again, so the idea here is that it's not so much, I'm not showing you this to necessarily have the debate on, are the police systemically racist? That's a conversation that, you know, we can have, but that's not really what we're doing. I'm specifically looking at how they've broken this down, because that's what this channel is about understanding these conversations and being able to make these calculations in your head to be able to not only understand your own point and get your own point across, but to understand other people's points. Basil said the police beat up pasty white people all the time. The media just never talks about it. Yep. He said, immature laws based on fairness and equality is racism. There you go. He's not yet, at least not yet. Remember, Destiny is he's a leftist, but he's not as far out there as most of them. He's a leftist, but he's Destiny.
For every 500 milligrams of cocaine, you get 5 years in prison. For every 1 milligram of crack, you get 5 years in prison.
Damn, I never thought about that, because from what I've never done crack, but from what I understand, 1 gram of cocaine is going to be more drug than 1 gram of crack. And so if the laws are that disparate, damn.
And so those outcomes would have race it. They would, if more people would be in prison for a smaller amount of crack than they would cocaine, right? But what reasons were those laws put on the books? Was it to stop the crack epidemic? Was it to help Black people? So it wasn't necessarily a racist in nature sentencing that was put on there. It just happens that was the outcome.
Right. And so Zippy said, depends on where the debate goes. Desperation makes equality and fairness go away. And we'll be able to see when and where he's switching tactics, how we can identify that, oh, he's switched tactics and now he's going to, equality and fairness. Because you guys know that Destiny is not going to just let himself look bad in a debate. Even if he doesn't have a point, he's linguistically able to make himself look at least like he knows what he's doing, that he didn't lose. And so we'll be able to see that as it's happening.
That could be the case, but if that is the outcome, we'd probably see.
So we have the major count, or the main counter being the laws with disproportionate outcomes does not prove racism. As we say all the time, disparity is not discrimination.
To change that, right?
Well, I'm not saying that we don't want to make everybody's lives better. I'm just saying that systemically, and that is the topic of this conversation, that on the books, you have to prove, and I think that's what's wrong. That's what society's doing. And
so the main counter here from, I should know her name. What's her name? Do we have her name? The lady. She's saying that disparity does not mean discrimination. And Destiny responds, well, okay, that is true. However, that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to change those outcomes. And so I think it would be on her to then be, well, maybe we do want those outcomes, because if those outcomes are relevant to the crime that's actually happening, then there's nothing wrong happening. If it's disproportionate, then maybe we should change those outcomes. But if it's proportionate to the crime that's happening, then there's no disproportionality.
Wrong right now is they're blaming white people, or they're blaming the system rather than treating the solution, which is only exacerbating the issue.
So we have an off topic here. Lisa. Okay. Welcome, Lisa. Diverts to a separate topic dealing with whether or not the police are racist, when the topic is the police system, systematically, whatever they call it, where switching to the individual police officer. And so I'm sure Destiny's going to pick up on that. But this is all the stuff that's happening when you're in a debate. So he says, an aside, anyone notice the new feature in Discourse? That's not new, brother. That is way old. Trying to cope, like, hey guys, there's a new feature. Basil said, Destiny looked bad when the cameras caught his wife getting rid of him. Yes, come on, bro. Do we have to talk about this ever? Are you that obsessed with Destiny's dick that you can't see his face without talking about it? Jesus Christ. Zuby said, legalize all drugs, regulate from a different angle. That will make all lives better. Just saying. I agree. One sec. We covered this again a week before Christmas. Could have used these lessons for some of the Thanksgiving conversations I had this year. People get prepared for constructive conversations. Exactly. Shout out to Miss Anthropic Altruist. Welcome to the party. So these two are having a debate on are the police systemically racist? But I'm not really so interested in the contents of that debate as much as the format of this video. As you can see, they have the debate all kind of laid out, and this is obviously a previous debate that they edited, and they're doing. They edit it to do this way, but I think it's a really cool way to look at how a debate unfolds in a visual way.
So I think carefully, so I'm not here to blame white people. I don't care about that. And I'm here to blame the system. Basically, what we're trying to say is, like, are there things that exist in the system that maybe put undue pressure on one race over another?
So again, the refocus, because Lisa went off topic talking about individual police officers. So now Destiny is bringing the conversation back to where he wants it to be, which is the topic. But even if it wasn't the topic, even if he was like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble here, then I could do the opposite and pivot away instead of pivoting it back towards the main topic.
So in the instance of like crack versus powder cocaine, is there a good reason why there is such a disparate charge? Why is there such a disparate rate in charging one versus the other? It seems to be that it massively impacts one race over the other because black people are more likely to use crack, white people are more likely to have the money to buy powder cocaine. Is there a good reason why the sentencing is so different from one to the other?
Yes.
Why would you say the reason for that is?
Okay, so again, now the question was asked, is there a difference? And she said, yeah, or there's a reason for this difference. And she said, yes. So now again, she's making a claim.
Okay, so because of the difference in price and things like that, it was negatively affecting more impoverished communities, specifically in the cities. And so you were having these big, like these larger crime and drug epidemics, and they were focused there. And so they say, okay, this is a problem. They weren't thinking about the difference between cocaine and crack. They were saying, let's make these penalties stronger for crack cocaine possession so that we can stop this madness. Now, to every policy comes a negative externality. And sometimes, like, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Sometimes you have good intentions on making communities better, and they have negative policy outcomes, which disproportionately affect Black communities. That doesn't mean that the policy is indeed racist.
So again, she's going back to disparity does not mean discrimination. Shout out to Indyville. Welcome to the party, brother. Sorry, I got caught up with everything. We will definitely talk. Glad to see you as always, brother. Zippy says, I do not think the system is racist, at least not since the 90s. As much as it hits minorities disproportionately due to how population centers are spread out. And there does seem to be a lot of that aspect where there's an overlap in these things that make it seem like racism. But is it really?
Sure. So I agree with that. So I want to focus on the last part. I don't know if we're going to keep coming back to this. So a policy doesn't have to necessarily be racist to be systemically racist. But if I look at the state of Black America today, and I look at it from a conservative angle, there are a couple of really easy attacks that I can levy against it. So one, the culture is relatively toxic when we look at what is mainstream or popular for a lot of like Black culture. And two, arguably downstream from that, the Black family is in a pretty sad state compared to what we would consider like most white families. I think both of us agree that these are like pretty bad things, right?
Yep.
Well, yeah, but when people always do that, they compare like Black and white first. But if you look at like median household income and you look at it for Pakistanis, if you look at it for Indians, right?
So before they go on, just a little thing about the structure here is that Destiny just made a claim. Destiny just made a claim that the white population is doing better, not is better or inherently is doing better than the Black community. And so her counter would be that we don't want to just have this binary conversation about Black and white. There's other races as well. MA said, my Hotep says yes. My base side said no. At least I'm half right. Hey, either way, you got it on either side, right?
Right. It is extraordinarily higher than it is for both white and Black. Actually, both white and Black are in the bottom two. And that is because, like, in the bottom range there. And that's because if you look at all these other groups, these Indian groups, these Chinese groups, all these other ethnicities, their levels of children out of wedlock are much lower than both of ours, than the white community and the Black community.
Sure.
And so we keep looking at the Black and the white community like that's the only problem, but it's not black and white. It is.
And I understand that. This is a slightly different argument. So when we talk about like Pakistani communities, Indian communities, especially Chinese communities, the primary reason why these communities are going to be doing so much better than Black and white communities writ large is going to be because these are immigrants largely. These are, if you have the money to immigrate from China, India, Pakistan, you're already selecting from a pretty elite class of people there.
So again, now we have the main stuff over here, but the conversation has moved to the the median income for other minority groups is higher than Black and white families. And then Destiny brings up the fact that if you see other races, a lot of times they're going to be immigrants.
In terms of who's going to come over. So for instance,
not necessarily true.
Well, just real quick, that is absolutely true. It's absolutely true. So for a really good example of this.
One sec, I promise we'll come right back to you, Lisa. I appreciate your spirit.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
I guess this is from a modern day debate. I would love to. There's nothing here about like who did the edit. This is from the Last Night on Destiny channel. But I mean, hey, shout out to whoever did this. And I wish your name was somewhere. I would definitely shout you out. So he says, looking at gun law, lawmakers make up crazy laws to look good, which means you get some insanely disproportionate rules being made. Oh, yeah. Understatement of the century, right? MA said, education in and of itself is not a solution. Education does not magically solve for other cultural issues. Yeah, that's lip service. The point that they're trying to make when they say education or awareness or this or that, is there's an implicit, well, if you knew what I knew, then you would feel the same way. If you knew what I knew, then you will feel the same way. But that's a claim. And again, a lot of times unsubstantiated. And so maybe, yeah, if you're coming from a very ignorant position, or not even let me say ignorant, but just an uninformed position, then education could be a part of the process. But exactly as Emma is saying, education does not magically solve for anything. It gives you the tools to understand what needs to be done, but that's it. Shout out to Unwanted Foe. Welcome to the party. Said, I appreciate your spirit. That's one way to say shut up and let them talk. Yep. Shout out to you. Welcome.
It's absolutely true. So for instance, if I look at Black families in the United States, I can get one median income and one like picture of what a Black household looks like. But if I were to look at just Kenyan families or Nigerian families, now I'm getting some of the wealthiest Americans for Nigerians hold more postgraduate degrees than any other group of ethnic group in the entire United States.
But that doesn't mean it's a product of what they came over with. It's a product of their culture and their values and what they prioritize.
Right. I love how they're doing this, because now as she's saying this, I'm trying to think of how I'm going to summarize what she's saying in the context. But then little card comes up and says, yeah, their success is not due to their wealth. And let's just see where it goes. Let's just see where it goes. I love this.
Their culture and their values and what they prioritize, which is
that was the case,
and family units.
But if that was the case, then everybody in Nigeria would be ultra well educated. That's not the case, right? The country.
So the claim, the counterclaim was that their success is due to their values, not their wealth. But Destiny's counterclaim to the counterclaim is that if it was their values, then the entire nation would be rich. But we don't see that. We only see the immigrants who come to America getting rich.
Here to get themselves educated because they want a better life. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be wealthier when they get here. And I know because I did immigration casework for like ever.
That's okay. That's great. But like, let's just think.
Statistically, it's not, you're not correct.
Statistically, I promise you I'm correct. Let's just think for.
Shout out to Ayush Gupta. Welcome to the party. So Destiny is wrong. The divorce rate is is least in India at 1% and generally lower in Asian communities. I don't have the children out of wedlock off the top of my head, but couldn't be high. Isn't elite thing. I don't. Which claim are you referring to? I don't remember us talking about divorces in different countries. But welcome to the party, brother. So pretty much every immigrant from Africa I've met hates being called African American. They are just Americans like the rest of us. Yeah, I mean, I think that was always virtue signaling from the left. That was always virtue signaling from the left.
For one moment, what type of family could immigrate, could either move themselves or their entire family from Africa to the United States?
We're people claiming asylum that have nothing.
I don't think that the people that come from Nigeria and like attain postdoctorate degrees in the U.S. higher rates than.
I mean, maybe now, but I think this is from a year ago, November 25th. Yeah, so just about a year ago. Maybe now, asylum will do that. But
any other ethnic group in the entire United States are all coming via asylum, right? The reason
They're
why
not, but a lot of them are.
Okay, okay, hold on.
All right, well, keep going.
Yeah,
we'll debate that later.
Well, it's just a fact that in order to be able, and I'm pretty sure they bring this up. I don't want to get a step on the content too much, but I'm pretty sure that they touch on the idea, or that it's well established, and just makes sense that if you're able to move out of a bad place and move your entire family to America, then you're going to be of a socioeconomic status in your country that's going to be higher. You're not getting poor people who are moving across the world.
Okay, hold on. This is just absolutely not true. So for anybody that has, I don't know what kind of immigration case you worked on, but if you're familiar with Chinese people, I live in LA, I've been to San Francisco, I know.
So this missed opportunity. Destiny missed an opportunity to refocus the argument, instead attacks the side claim. And so what that means to me is that whoever is watching this is obviously missed opportunity, but it comes off like, she got you, Destiny. She brought you down this road. And now instead of refocusing and getting back to, okay, well, what does this have to do with, what does this have to do with the prompt? Then, he's going down this road. Now, of course, you can do whatever you want in a conversation. There's no rules, but it's just interesting to see. Zippy said the problem with Destiny saying their nation should be wealthy is hella sus and is a shallow distraction. Almost a star man? You mean a straw man? Really, does he understand how much a stable market and jobs change things? I don't know. Maybe you should ask them. You said Destiny's supporting argument that Asian and Indian community doing better in the children out of wedlock numbers is due to the selection bias of immigrants from being from an elite class. The Asians are doing better. I don't understand what we're. It sounds like we all agree. I don't know what we're. I'm confused with what the confusion is.
know a lot of Chinese American people here. A lot of these people, their families came over from a lot of these countries because they were pretty wealthy, because they were driven to get an education, because they were driven to have their children like get educated in the United States. You're not selecting for an
and this is what I was saying, is that maybe now with the Biden wave, then things don't work this way anymore. But it certainly, even if it was, I mean, not like the border was perfectly sealed before Biden, but we're talking about balance of probabilities. Quantum thinks so. Destiny certainly likes to disprove every side claim he can. He'll stay on them for the whatever debate if they allow him. It's important sometimes, but he even calls that a tactic out against other debaters. That in and of itself is also a tactic. What do I have in my teeth? Couldn't somebody tell me there was something in my teeth? God damn. But that's what that is a debate tactic. Calling out other people's debate, like spiking the ball in football is a tactic. That doesn't mean that other people can't use it. And that doesn't mean that if you're in a situation where it's kind of cheap to spike the ball, they're like, oh, you could have gone for it and you just spiked, they just spiked it. Yeah, that's how debate works. That's how football works.
Average citizen, you're selecting from the upper tier.
Visas. You're talking about student visas and people that come over here who have money do student visas, and then they get.
I'm not just talking about student visas. Here's a question for you: who do you think is going to be wealthier on average? The average American family, or the average American family that's immigrated to another country?
Ooh, let's run that back real quick. Say what is up to Opus. Welcome to the party. Yeah, I don't know what is going on over there. All right, let's back that up and see.
Question for you. Who do you think is going to be wealthier on average? The average American family or the average American family that's immigrated to another country?
The average American, I'll tell you what, this is a better question.
Well, no.
For
I
the
want an answer to
Chinese-
that. I
no,
want an
for
answer
the
to that
Chinese
question
population
specifically.
that's
I
here.
need.
So again, you'll see that now that we have the question card on the screen, it would be very difficult for her to do anything besides answer that question. But when it's not out there, if you're good at debate tactics and you don't have a good answer to that question, then you could pivot, you could do this, you could do that, you could do a whole bunch of things. But now, and again, this is something Destiny is already very good at, which is why this format of this visual format is going to work. Is that he'll already be like, no, this is the question. And then somebody will start rambling and be like, oh, I'll let you finish. And then I'll just ask you the question again. And so that's what, that's what he's doing here. But now, again, we have the visual aspect. Yeah, and Guamtex is like, this is part of why I watch his content. He knows the debate tactics and calls them out and helps you learn what to look for. Exactly. Of course. Ayush said, I was adding to my previous comment. I don't know if we agree. He's diminishing the relevance of culture. I would say that she is overemphasizing that culture. I don't think in the context of what they're talking about, the only thing that's tripping me up is that they were because he's on a white and black mindset, and she was the one to bring up other ethnicities. So he's doing okay. So yeah, I guess he's diminishing it to some extent, but I don't think that him diminishing it takes away from his point. That while the culture may matter, the poor people of that culture are still not the ones who are coming to America. I think that's where I'm at. Does that make sense? I don't know what the hell I just said. So if I'm wrong, please tell me where I'm wrong. Basil said, debate requires one to know everything that helps you prove your stance and everything that goes against your stance. Destiny knows how, but he manipulates well. Exactly. Culture is key. Definitely. All right, so let's back this up here.
I'll tell you what, this is a better question.
Well, no.
For
I
the
want an answer to
Chinese-
that. I want an
for
answer
the
to that
Chinese
question
population
specifically.
that's here.
I want an answer to that question specifically.
There's been Chinese people in America for how long? Right? They're not all immigrants from China, yet they prioritize education and they prioritize the family, and they have been here for decades. And the reason is it's their priorities, not because they were already born into wealth.
I'm just
so I think I'm understanding where you're coming from. That he's what was the word that you used? Yeah, I think I wouldn't use the word diminishing in the sense that I don't think he's saying it's less. I think he was saying that while that cultural aspect is there, the American side of things, when you come to the States, because remember, this all started out with him saying that if somebody of a certain race is an immigrant, then they're more likely to be wealthy to start out with, if they're coming to America. So I think they're like, there's just a little bit of wires getting crossed. I get what you're saying, and I agree that is happening, but I don't think that's his point, and I'm not sure. So hey, shout out to Basil, the pumping seagull with the Canadian $2 said, please hug the doge of small variety. You don't want hugs, he wants treats. That's right. Every treat comes with every donation comes with a treat for Morty, and of course that makes you the new sponsor of the stream. Thank you, sir. Very, very much appreciated.
Just curious who you think is going to be more wealthy, like the families that come, like the average American family, or the average American family living abroad, or that immigrates to another country.
Yeah, but that's a completely different story. They're coming here for a better opportunity, and they're going over there for jobs and other things. People are not fleeing America for a better life.
Who do you think is wealthier, the average Chinese person or the average Chinese person that moves their whole family to the United States of America?
Just to eventually circle back to the topic for tonight.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, I understand, but like, I mean, like we have to come from a similar epistemic foundation. Like, I guess, or I'll do one quick spiel and this will be done.
That's kind of what I was hinting on, is that this main question: who has an income? American? Sorry, they're simplifying it there, but the idea. Thank you again, Basil. The idea that if you have the money to bring yourself to America, then you're going to have more money than the people who are in that same situation who don't come to America. That makes sense to me. Guys, can we just get 2 more likes, please? Just 2 more likes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Misanthropic Altruist says, not true. Of the Asians, Chinese are not uniformly doing well in the U.S. It will depend on where from China they immigrate from and their intention. Every treat comes with a donation for Morty. Yep, you got it. Yeah, considering the CCP owns everything in China. Yep.
I'm sorry, but it is absolutely the case that the people that immigrate to this country that are looking for better opportunities, better whatever, are oftentimes people that are coming from the higher quintile of income or wealth from the countries that they're coming from. That's why they can afford to do it.
So do we disagree with that point? That the people who are coming from different countries are usually in a higher quintile than those who are not, typically.
You're like, I'm sorry, but wait, real quick, let me just finish real quick. A poor Chinese farmer is not moving his whole family to the United States. Or somebody that works on rice paddies in East India is not moving his whole family to the United States. Or somebody in Kenya that is starving is not moving their whole family to the United States.
Again, agree or disagree? So I'd love for us to, because I feel like that makes a lot of sense, but I could be very, very, very wrong. So I want to hear what you guys are thinking about that before we move on. Basil said the Chinese are, in fact, non-uniform in their success in North America. Yeah. U.S. Fed owns too much. Based. Yeah, fair enough.
That's
Typically,
just your assumption. You have no evidence to back that up because that's not necessarily true. I mean, I've seen their paperwork. They don't. They have like 3 cows. Like, that's not how it works. I mean, just maybe do a Google search. I'm not in front of my computer, but like average income of an immigrant when they get here, it's not high.
So I'm just curious. So if I were to show you like what number are you looking for?
This is where I'm going with unwanted votes, and it's expensive and time consuming to move to a different country, let alone change citizenship. And so I would, it just makes sense, unless there's other information that I don't have, that it would be the people who have the means to, to pay for this and to take the time to actually do this. When if you're, like he's saying, working the farms or, cutting rice paddies, then you can't take off a day to go fill out papers. And even if you could, you're not making enough to move. So again, where are you guys? Ayush, did you leave?
I've dealt with so many families coming here on like spouse visas and other types of visas there's not many people that just come right away and move their whole family here. It's like one person comes and then they bring over their spouse or they get married.
We got a co-host. Ayush says, I disagree with this. First off, there are refugees. Also, better off people don't want to move here because they are better off where they are. But the idea being that better off where you are is still very shitty compared to the life that you could live in America. Maybe this is my American-centric ignorance that everybody is going to have a much better life just by stepping foot here. But like, that's the way they make it seem. And I've never lived in another country, so I don't know. So just because they're better off, and yes, there's a refugee seeking asylum, and that number has exploded. We're talking about the people who are economic migrants. And so if the better off people don't want to move here because they're better off where they are. So you're saying only the poor people from countries come? That doesn't make sense. This topic said maybe do a Google search. Should be met with an instant fuck off. Google is a flawed search engine and does not a sorcerer's stone. Fair enough. Bro, please what? Say the thing. I don't know what this means. Oba said, I think the biggest demo coming across the southern border is young men who have nothing and have nothing to lose. Sure, but again, we're not talking about illegal crossings. We're talking about the people who go through the immigration system as economic migrants. We're not talking about people who just jump over the border. We're not talking about people who are here on refugee asylum things. We're trying to talk about the economic patterns of people who immigrate legally to this country. That's what I think they're talking about. Am I stupid? Is that not what they're talking about? I say can't imagine me living in India. Can't see it at all. That motherfucker is American as fuck. You goddamn right. You goddamn right.
Right away and move their whole family here. It's like one person comes and then they bring over their spouse, or they get married and they come here. And like, it's not like, oh, hey, let's just move my whole family. There's lots of immigration laws that are cumbersome, and it's usually like one person at a time.
Yeah, but who has the money to make it through those cumbersome processes?
It's really not that expensive. You can get waivers all the time before your income. You fill out one form and you get all of your immigration forms the cost to it waived.
That's not, it might be the.
Yes, it is absolutely true.
Okay. So I have a Swedish fiance who's in the process of doing this. So we have a lawyer. We've been filling out all the K1.
Okay, but middle class in terms of America, or middle class in terms of the country that they're coming from? Nobody is making the argument that immigrants come here and then are in the American top 1%. That is not the argument that's being made here. That the Indian who is in America, the Indian who stays in India versus the Indian who has the resources to be able to move to America, we could say likely those people are in a better position than those who cannot afford to do so. Nobody's saying that you can't be doing well in a country that's not America. Opa said, yes, legal immigration is good. That's why the legal process was created, to make sure we get the best, not just import other nations' problems. Exactly. But he said, how many people immigrate legally versus illegally to Western countries? I'd love to see a percentage. I would too. I want to post that she's definitely conflating immigration and asylum seekers. I agree. I think this is what they're getting caught up on, because this is, I think, what we're getting caught up on is that it sounds like Destiny is trying to talk about the people who are coming as immigrants, and she's bringing in asylum seekers and refugees with that, which is a different category, at least as far as I understand it. But he said a Swedish fiance that he gets. MA said, I'm trying to parse out legal and illegal immigration. Yes, exactly. Ayush said middle class in the country they're coming from. Yeah, nobody's disagreeing with that. Destiny, the way Destiny is making it sound, it seems like the process is out of reach of people. It's not the case. I did not get that feeling at all. He didn't say that, and she didn't respond anything to that. So I don't think, I think he might be squeezing something in there that's not there. Open said legal immigration is a difficult process. That's why legal immigrants are staunchly against the current democratic immigration policy. Yep, my parents immigrated here, so they know it very, very well.
I have a Swedish fiance who's in the process of doing this. So we have a lawyer. We've been filling out all the K1 visa stuff. So I understand you have some personal experience.
I'd be happy to write you a letter of a congressman to write a letter.
Oh, she took too long to say that. If I'm Destiny, I'm like, I wouldn't trust you, or some little dig.
Letter of recommendation.
So the fact that you're even offering me that kind of shows you that wealthier people probably have an easier time with the system than like a random rice farmer in India.
Exactly. So the connection, money is not the only thing that is wealth. So if you do have that money, then you're going to have connections to people who can, talk to a senator, talk to a prime minister, all of this. The idea that having more money is not going to make it easier for you to do one of the biggest things that you can do in the world is silly to me. That's silly. And if somebody was making this argument that middle class people from other countries are only rich people, he said a higher quintile. That means more. That doesn't mean the elite of the elite. Words are important, guys. Zippy said, I'd say immigration from a middle-class background would be put through the legal grinder just because they are not desperate. Perhaps.
Right?
No, because I helped Pakistani people come here that had no
anecdotal evidence,
connection. Somebody told them to call their congressman, and we helped them out. That's what happens.
If we're able to remind the audience in
right,
terms of how this
I
traces
get,
back.
sorry, fuck. Okay, just so real quick, the household median income for Asian Americans is $75,000, which is 39% greater than the national median income of $54,000. But I imagine you'll just say it's because they work
But
harder
the
or something.
Indians is 126,000.
That's fine.
Filipinos are
The majority of
100,000.
Asian
Hispanics are
Americans,
87,000.
the majority of Asian Americans are immigrants, with 66% of them being foreign-born. Most Asian Americans are of Chinese origin.
Yeah, so I mean, we're seeing that there are numbers to support this. Now, you guys know me with the sources and the this and the that. Just because one paper says one thing doesn't mean it is the end of the world. That is the end of the discussion. That doesn't mean we don't trust science. So guys, 2 more likes, please. 2 more. Come on, we got 9 people in here, and we are almost at 100%. Thank you. So let's go to our running poll. How confident are you at debate? I didn't know how to word this. This is a weird question. But we had very confident, not confident, or very not confident. I don't know if it was inconfident, confident. Either way, we had 67% of you saying very confident. So that tracks to me. And I think that, we have a very eclectic group here of people from very different places in terms of where our perspectives are. But I think the beauty of this community is that is what we come here for. It's for other people's opinions and to understand that I'm going to be vulnerable and put my opinions out there, and they're going to be vulnerable and put their opinions out there, and it might get heated, but hey, we're going to have a good time. I want to post, and so those families who were lucky enough to talk with this woman, that certainly isn't the norm by any stretch. Exactly. What? Yeah, no confidence could have that probably would have made me seem a little smarter. MA said, this is too easy. This broad is not a good debater. Right. But again, the idea is not to see, who's going to win, who's right, who's wrong. The idea here is to be able to visualize this and see or to be able to see this when you are just talking, when we're watching other videos, when we're listening to other debates, when you are in a debate yourself, you're able to have this. If you're not an auditory learner and you need some type of visual, now you have a map of, okay, this is how I need to set things up in my mind.
They prioritize what's important: education and family values. It is what it is.
Okay, let's. We're gonna. Okay, we'll
put that aside.
Come back around to this. So, we agreed originally. I think we agreed on this, that we can point to maybe Black culture or Black family structures as being things that are detrimental at large to the Black community.
So now we're going back to the original main claims that from Lisa, laws with disproportionate outcomes do not prove racism. And Destiny says, maybe not, but we should still change it. Shout out to Unwanted with the $3 super chat. It is time for communion. You are blessed in the house of the Indian Jesus. Thank you, sir. And of course, that makes you the new sponsor of the stream. Thank you so much, brother. Very, very, very much appreciated. You got it? Drop it. Don't drop it.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay,
so let's, real quick, they have agreements that, one, racist outcomes does not mean racist intent. Even I don't like you can tell this is whoever edited this had a left-wing tinge, because racist outcomes is something that I would not be okay with, but disparate outcomes with race. But that's their first agreement. So they agree that outcomes that are disparate do not mean racist intent. They also agree that culture and family structure are things that are hurting the Black community. Hey, shout out to Alex Pickus in the building. Welcome to the party. It's a debate topic that doesn't need a debate. Biden sucks. I think you're right there. I think you are right. Welcome to the party.
So if we were to say, for instance, that having a single parent in the household is a high predictor for your child committing a crime, I hope we agree on that. If we agree on that, it might be the case that we could follow that back and look at like disparate sentencing rates for different types of drugs and say, hey, when we enacted like these 3-strike policies from the 93 crime bill, when we cracked down on certain types of drugs this way, we noticed that it produces this outcome that's leading to a whole bunch of bad downstream effects. So I agree with you that we can take a law originally that isn't racist. It doesn't have any bad racial intent. It might even be to help a certain race of people. But when we look at how that impacts things down the road, it's like, oh shit, hold on. Well, there's like a systemic injustice here because in an attempt to say help black neighborhoods by getting rid of crack cocaine, we've actually like put a lot of black neighborhoods even worse on a path toward destruction by putting a lot of like black African-American men into jails and then impeding their ability to ever get a job or to reform themselves or to contribute to their families in a meaningful way.
Okay, so before she goes on, again, we're not getting into, they're having the debate. We are watching it from the outside to understand what is happening in the debate. So the original claim, again, is that even if it's not racist, that these outcomes are disparate, maybe we should still say we should still change them. And he said, he was saying that some laws with no racial intent are having negative effects on the people, and let's fix that. But again, he has not substantiated that the disparate outcomes are not proportionate to the actual crime. If there's disparity in crime, there needs to be disparity in outcomes, right? May said nuke power is based. Fair enough. Opus said that is BS. The law doesn't make the black community anti-family. What? I don't know. I don't think anybody said that. MA said systematic is too intensive a framing. Are there hangover policies, practices, and attitudes from bygone eras? Indubitably. I think that's really fair. I think that's very fair. And I think that would be a really easy place for people to split the difference if they weren't so worried about winning. This is what happens when y'all trying to win instead of just having the conversation. Well said, sir. Oba said, if anything, social safety nets as they currently exist create guys, please, come on. Spelling.
I agree with you. I think that there were laws on the books quite like not that long ago. I mean, there were redlining, which happened to other communities too. There was, stop and frisk and the things that you were naming in your opening.
Oh, okay. I didn't know what create ant family means. So yeah, and again, we all agree. We've had this conversation a million times. We're not debating them, guys. That's not that's not what's happening here. We're not debating them. They are not here. We are watching them to understand how this debate is playing out.
Sentence. And while I do think that those things at a time we did have racist laws on the books, we do not now. And to say that, and to continue to say that the America is systemically racist, or that the police force is systemically racist now in its current form, is wrong. Not only is it wrong, but it's actually detrimental to the African American community. Because
okay, so now we have a counterclaim that, as I was saying before, okay, the outcomes are disparate, but is there a good reason for that? Are black people committing more crimes? Well, if they are, then no, we shouldn't fix the disparity.
Because what's happening is the more you mentally beat people down and say, you're never going to make it because of A, B, C, D, they begin to believe it. And then the cycle only continues on and on and on. So I think that the best thing to do is say, yes, there were these problems. There are certain ways that we would like to fix them. There are certain things that we can do. But to sit there and say that the police force right now, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about police, not the laws that Congress put on and not the laws, or not what businesses are doing. We're saying, is this police force racist right now on the books?
Ooh.
As per our definition we agreed to in the beginning? Is it racist? And the answer is clearly no.
Okay, so we have a misrepresentation. Lisa knowingly or unknowingly reverts to racism generally instead of systemic racism, which is the first ding that she got. That she was talking about individuals with racist intent. Now, again, I tend to agree with her position. As y'all pointed out, she's not necessarily a great debater, but that's okay. That's okay, because we're not here to make Destiny look bad. This already happened, and Destiny doesn't care. Hey, shout out to Trey Williams in the building. Welcome to the party. So the problem was that crack gave you more time than Coke. Yeah, it was like 6 times as long for the the same weight, right? Crazy. But how much this exactly? Thank you, brother.
Okay, now, so are there effects from previous systemic racism? Sure.
Sure. So
is it enough?
I don't disagree.
No.
Do you want me to keep it? Do you want me to keep it up here so that you could see the whole everything, and I can move this back down, or do you like it normal?
I don't disagree with you. I'm not here to say America is systemically racist. To be very clear, there were 3 different pieces of information that I wanted to go over regarding the police. The only reason we're talking about crack cocaine and drugs is because you brought that up as your initial topic. You offered that to me. So I just wanted to follow that down to where it's going, right? So in terms of like, it might be the case that there are Black people today that are, messed up in life because liberals on Twitter are telling them that the system is beating them, blah, blah, blah. That could be the case. I haven't looked into that much. I do know that it is indeed the case that once people are put into the incarceration system, the recidivism rates in the United States are among the highest in the world. And once you get registered in that system, you are more likely to recommit. You have a harder time finding a job. That these are the types of like systemic issues that will affect people that have been processed by that system. And they're
okay. So now again, as you see with the card, that he is offering more support for his original claim that we should indeed change these outcomes. We shouldn't have disparate outcomes. And he's saying, that there's a systemically racial element. And so that's the new supporting claim, is that overly harsh sentencing can cause long-term systemic issues for Black people. So when Trey brings up that the problem was that crack gave a lot more time than coke, let's say my dad got 67 years for a zip of crack versus someone else who gets 15 for the same amount of coke. And so that doesn't mean that there is a disparity there. There's a disparity there. And so if we're talking about the disparity between the sentencing, then definitely we should change that. Definitely we should change that. I mean, I think it should all be legal, but if we're going to make it illegal, it should be at least proportionate. But that doesn't address the larger point of whether or not the sheer numbers of crimes being committed are done more per quota, per capita by Black people versus white people. And this is, this is terrible. This is horrible. This is wrong. But that also doesn't mean that America is systemically racist. That may be a law that has, disparate outcomes. But again, just because it has a disparate outcome doesn't mean that it is racist. No, it doesn't mean it's not. But that's the debate. MA said, is crack versus cocaine a good example of systemic racism or a better example of classism, which cannot be solved for? Rich folks got good lawyers and other fixers networks to bat away charges. Good point. Good point. I don't know how. I think it is. I think it is because it is the grounds on which the actual instance of being arrested for crack cocaine or being arrested for for an 8-ball blow. Those are equally illegal, or those should be equally illegal in the eyes of the law. There's nothing inherently worse about doing crack than there is about buying or doing coke. It's just a cultural difference the way that we see that. So I don't know if classes. So if it is the case that it's just rich folks got good lawyers and other fixers, then that creates a line that within the Black community, there's people who are rich enough to bat away their crack charges. Or sorry, they would be. So there's Black people that would be rich enough to bat away coke charges, but because they got crack because of their culture, that's what's around. Now they can't fight 67 years. So I do think it is a good example, actually, because it has a lot of nuance that we can dive into. Well, is it racist because of this? Is it racist because of that? Or is it not racist? Is it just, so I actually do think it's a good example. So there's definitely some argument for that being a racist policy. I agree. So we said people go back to jail because that's what the education system is built for, to send people to government institutions. Unfortunately, true. Unfortunately. MA said a crack dealer could pool resources, retain good lawyers, and this had occurred but before the impromptu union falls apart, only serves the shot caller's best interest. Yeah, exactly. If you're just a random dude just buying off the corner, like, you're arrested, you're screwed. The noble caste protects the noble caste. Those laws are not so hard on crimes that the noble class does. Rules for thee, but not for me. You said recidivism will be solved if we break off the relationship of the prison system and the private sector. It's in the interest of prison owners to have more prisoners. Improve the quality of rehab in the prison system. I agree with where you're coming from, but I'm not 100% sure that I want. I do think the way that private prisons are set up is bad, but I think there is a way that private prisons could be set up where there is competition to be the better prison, lower recidivism rates, higher productivity, and this, that, or the other. And I think the private sector would do that better. But I definitely agree that the private prison system that we have now is terrible. Trey disagrees with Misanthropic Altruist, said the dealers and users were getting charged for crack where normally a coke user would get sent to rehab. That's another aspect of the culture. We can't, even if we want to say, harsh things at the end of the day, well, like, you chose to do a drug, you chose to do this, you could have do this, you could have did that. These things are real. And they do affect the culture. Absolutely. Context, I'd say classism is more to blame for systemic inequalities 9 times out of 10 before racism. Fair enough. All right. So again, it's the initial here. Overly harsh sentencing can cause long-term systemic issues for Black.
Systemic issues that will affect people that have been processed by that system. And there are laws on the books today that seem to disproportionately impact certain races. So we talked about crack versus powder cocaine earlier. We could talk about marijuana laws as well. And it seems to be that if those laws and the ways that we classify drugs exist today, and they're being used to sentence Black people in harsher manners or in unfair manners today versus white people, that it would seem to be the case that until they're repealed, there is an argument to be made, as long as these continue to produce bad outcomes for Black families, that there is a form of systemic injustice here.
Okay, but see, where's the card above Destiny's head smuggling in, begging the question? He's begging the question here. Listen, he says
that it would seem to be the case that until they're repealed, there is an argument to be made, as long as these continue to produce bad outcomes.
As long as these continue to produce bad outcomes. That's begging the question, bro. That's what we're trying to determine. Are they bad outcomes or are they not bad outcomes? They're obviously bad for the person. But we're saying if you do commit a crime, you should have to pay the price. So if the people who are committing the crimes are paying the price, then that's not bad outcomes. That's begging the question. You're trying to claim your position as a fact when that is the discussion that we're having, whether or not they are bad outcomes. So Trey said, or Misanthropic said to Trey, yes, but we need to prove that first cocaine and crack are charged differently, which they definitely are, and 2, prove this is because of race. I agree with you. Come on. I agree with you. However, the notion of proving that it's because of race is, I think, an unfair standard. I think that's an unfair standard because you can't prove intention of something. So I mean, we can reasonably assume that if there's a disparity between two things that are not different, then back to what Zippy was saying, is that the noble caste protects the noble caste. So definitely, I mean, maybe you think that there's no disparity or there's no connection to race between the difference in sentencing, but you'd be hard pressed to get most people on board with that. Goes on to say, typical street dealers are too quick to plea bargain, which will make the conviction rates soar. A good lawyer won't let his client immediately plea bargain. That is not true at all. That is absolutely not true. If you can plea out, especially if you're a street level dealer and you have somebody else to give up, and you can plea out and get a year versus, like Trey's dad, 67 years, What? This is just completely false. And then if this is the case, then what we're saying is that the crack dealers are being pushed into this area where they are plea bargaining when the coke offendants are not. That's a disparity, which goes back to our original question. So we have to get past this idea of, we have to get past this notion of, well, coke's worse or crack's worse. That's not relevant here. What's relevant is why are the sentences different? If they're different for racial reasons, or even if they're not racial reasons and they cause racial effects, then Destiny is right. There's something that should be changed. If everything is working as it should, then he's wrong. They should not be changed. That's the conversation. So, I mean, you can listen to lawmakers from the 80s when the policy was made. It's quite clear that race was a motivating factor for how the law was drafted. Yeah, I mean, Joe Biden being a good place to start. Cackling Kamala is another. Yeah, I mean, we were all, singing the praises of how much we appreciated Kamala's prosecutorial life. But now has nothing to do with that, right? Every time somebody wants to say, "Oh, Trump is racist," well, what about the '94 crime bill? But now there's no race. Like, come on, guys, let's just because there is racism that exists doesn't mean Donald Trump is bad. You can understand the realities of the of reality without having to pretend certain things so that what you already think aligns with what you're saying. It seems like you're trying to get out in front of, well, if there's racism, then they're going to say the Democrats should win and Joe Biden is good and Donald Trump is bad. This is what you don't do in a debate. Notice how none of that stuff is on the screen, because that is not anything that we're talking about. If we can prove so what would, explain to me what you, what is the process of proving a racial motivation behind these laws? What would that look like? How do we go? What is the process? And then after that process, how would we know it is racist or there was racial motivation or there was not racial motivation? How do we do that? I said they should establish if the drug enforcement should be there in the first place. If it's a crime, then it should be then the criminal behavior should be corrected regardless of the race. Exactly. So you said, I don't think there is a race connection. It's more that crack is used by the peasants, Zippy's words, thus the law is harder on them. Look at Hunter Biden not going to the federal pen over gun charges. But I mean, he was also using crack. But I mean, he's the president's son, so that's way far outlier. MA said, not all dealers are the same. Some pivot from street level to selling directly to their richer clientele. What does that have to do with disparities and outcomes? So I don't think the biggest problem is the drug law, though. I think the biggest lie is that incarceration is meant to reform. That's one of the biggest lies in American history. Damn straight.
For Black families, that there is a form of systemic injustice here. Now, I'm aware, though,
I want to back that up. Let's see.
Seem to be the people in harsher manners or unfair manners today versus white people, that it would seem to be the case that until they're repealed, there is an argument to be made, as long as these continue to produce bad outcomes for Black families, that there is a form of systemic injustice here. Now, I'm aware, though, that we're talking more about the courts and the laws that exist in the books and not necessarily police officers themselves. So we can move off to the police officer conversation, but I don't think that the example that you've given me right now is necessarily free of...
Wait a minute. I hate to be that guy, bro, but this is not a question. This is an assertion.
But I think that you're missing it. I think that you're missing a key point, right? And is that you keep saying that there's systemic injustice, but that's not, injustice is not the same as racism. And I think that this is contributing to a narrative in our culture that's like dividing us down the middle. That
I completely agree. Now we're getting somewhere. That just because there is injustice doesn't mean that it's racism. And we can all agree that the legal system is far from perfect. But the question being begged here Is it due to race or something else? Again, classism is the core of socialism. Noble's gonna noble.
America is a racist place, or the police force, or the laws, it's racist. Now, do they have disparate impact? Sure, right? I'm not saying that. Are there problems in the policing community that negatively affect one more than the other? Fine, but you have to look, when you're talking about something being racist, you're talking about the intention of the law being racist.
No, so
and you can shake your head no, but that's how everybody takes it.
Okay, so
well, that's in general discussion. Yes, you are correct. However, in this conversation, we are specifically talking about systemic racism. So you may take the position that it's not there, but you can't say it's not racist because it's not an individual person doing a racism. That again is begging the question:
are these laws racist?
We're gonna
racist.
So
it's gonna say the same thing again, the second time.
Circle back to the.
So again, what I want from you guys is to be able to see that this card was about to pop up before it pops up. Listen to it again, and I'll put a 1 in the chat if you knew where that was going.
The intention of the law being racist.
No, so
and you can shake your head no, but that's how everybody takes it.
Okay,
are
so
these laws racist?
We're gonna
racist.
So I want to circle back to the systemic racism.
So let's go over our definition of racism then. What's your definition of racism?
I want to circle back to the. I can give you a definition of racism. So, in my opinion, being racist is usually when you attack somebody in a way that maligns their race, like as that characteristic.
No,
like you're
that's
bad.
actually not the definition.
Hold on, we just hear the rest of Steven's.
Chill. Yeah. Okay. So typically, attacking somebody on the basis of race is usually seen as like racist. So if I say like, "Oh, you're bad because you're black," or "You have this characteristic because you're race," we would normally see those things as racist. When we talk about systemic racism, systemic racism.
So before he goes on, I want to just see if I can steel man what I think he thinks and is going to say is that it's not about individuals having that prejudice. It's about things that happen that do create these disparities, whether or not there is intention behind it or not. And I would say that maybe there are things that that happen, but as many of you guys are saying, I think that is more due to class than to race. But that's what I think he is going to say. Is that that remember the main counter here: laws with disproportionate outcomes does not prove systemic racism. And I think Destiny disagrees with that. I think he does think that disproportionate outcomes mean systemic racism. Let's see.
So if I say like, "Oh, you're bad because you're black," or "You have this characteristic because you're race," we would normally see those things as racist. But when we talk about systemic racism, systemic racism as a system doesn't really require any racist actors.
Called it.
That's why it's systemic racism and not racism. So for instance, we could argue that there exists a systemically racist police force where none of the police officers themselves are actually racist, because a system that perpetuates racially disparate outcomes doesn't need individual racist actors.
So this is where I would jump in and say, okay, in the same way that misanthropic altruist is trying to say we would have to prove that it's racist, then again, Destiny's putting himself in the same position, saying that you would have to prove that it's not it's racist just based on the disparity. That's his argument, is that disparity equals racism, and I think we all just disagree with that. But that's the argument that he's making. Indie Film said, "Can we all agree that having voter ID is racist because Indie Film says black people can't get driver's licenses?" Indie Film says. See, I got to read it like that. Yeah, I don't know. They'll clip that shit up. Good one, though. MA said 4 variables with this terrible example, which somehow presupposes black coke dealers are unfairly treated and white crack dealers get less of a target on their back. Yeah, we all agree. Nobody's trying to convince you in the chat that Destiny is correct. If you think that that's what's happening here, again, I will tell you that is not what we are doing. We generally all agree on the debate that's happening. What we're doing is trying to see the visual aspect of a debate that we already essentially are going to agree on so that we can see the process. That's what we're doing. You said incarceration is AKA what?
What?
The fact that we are failing in doing that miserably shouldn't dilute our goal that it's meant for redemption. It should be a wake-up call that we need to do bet. We do need to do bet, guys. If you don't do bet, bad things happen.
That's why we call it systemic racism and not just racism.
Ooh, I like this from Zippy. Systemic racism is unintended racism caused by how the laws work differently based on class. I like that a lot. It's just like some things are not, some things are not just that, pun intended, black and white, and sometimes there's effects that are just not racism. And yep, systemic racism is just like God, can't be proven or unproven. There you go. Hope says it's a waste of time to argue if policy is racist. The better argument definitely would be how to provide upward mobility financially to all equally. This would solve all the systemic racist problems without more racism. Very nice.
The actual definition of racism is when you believe that one race is superior to another race and that the rest are inferior. That's the definition of racism, right? So
hold on. If I were to say that, can I ask a question on that? If I were to say that Asian people are less creative than white people, but they have their own strengths, is that racist or not racist?
No, but that that's not the actual definition.
Well, no, because the definition you gave is just not true.
No, so, superior in that. No, that is the definition. Like Miriam.
Right, she's scrambling now because he gave a very broad but boilerplate definition, and she's trying to she's trying to work backwards and look at what she sees as racist instances and describe them. But that's not how we get definitions. You're going the wrong way, lady.
Strengths. Wait, can I ask a question on that? If I were to say that Asian people are less creative than white people, but they have their own strengths, is that racist or not racist?
No, but that's not the actual definition.
Well, no, because the definition you gave is just not true.
No, superior in that. No, that is the definition. Like Merriam-Webster, it like that's the definition. Now, if you're going to say that, I lost my train of thought. But if you're going to say that like people are racist, it has to have a negative intention. You cannot say that a whole system is racist and that it's at the hands of this like white superior, group that's purposely targeting people. That's what is coming out of all that conversation. You don't think it is, but it is. I mean, you're shaking your head no at me, but everybody watching who thinks that the system is racist, it's at the hands of white people, and that is not doing anybody any favors. And it's
that health bar is going yellow. It's going yellow. And it's not because Destiny is right. It's because she is not debating properly. She is not expressing what seems to be her correct opinion. She's not able to do that. And that is what matters. It doesn't matter that you think the right things. You have to be able to articulate it. Otherwise, it's just a thing you think. That's it. I see then stop going into the weeds yourself. What? I see then stop going into the weeds yourself. Okay. Everybody's on their English.
They're saying it because they think that like it's that it's purpurposeful.
I think the
not
whole
purposeful.
vocab of systemic racism needs to be dumped. I think it's fucked. I think it's unsalvageable.
Mess up the African American community. It's just not realistic.
Sure. So there are multiple discussions happening here. So if you want to have the discussion that the phrase systemic racism is a shitty phrase because it's triggered the fuck out of a lot of people, at this point, I mean, as evidenced by this conversation, I don't know if I would disagree with you because as soon as people hear the word racism, it literally doesn't matter what comes before and after. People immediately go on the defense for whatever reason.
I agree with him and he's agreeing with her. But the point that she's making is not relevant in the context of this conversation. If we're just talking about racism, if you just go up to a random person and you talk about racist things, then that's one conversation. But you're having this specific debate where you've already defined what you are talking about with specifically systemic racism. And so this is, again, I forget, but whoever said it before about knowing both sides of the argument, that she just sees, this is the third time. She said, well, that's not racist. And I agree with her. But that doesn't mean that she's addressing the prompt or the claim or whatever. She's not addressing it. And that's why they're not getting anywhere. This is what you don't want to happen. Just get stuck in, well, I'm right. It ain't about that.
which makes it really hard to have a conversation about systemic racism. So if it would make you more comfortable or prevent you from getting triggered in the conversation, I can use a different phrase besides systemic. You're very triggered right now.
I'm a very
to be very clear in this conversation, and we can go back, or I'll tell you if you don't believe me, I have never claimed a single actor is racist in this entire thing. I'm not telling you that the laws were racist. In fact, I think there are a lot of well-intentioned laws that end up having bad outcomes that weren't racist. I don't think that our crime laws are
Again, he smuggled it in. Again, I agree with every word he's saying except for bad outcomes. I don't know exactly what he means by bad outcomes. If he's specifically referring to the disparity in crack and cocaine, then okay, we can have a conversation on that. But we're talking about crime in general. Hey, shout out to Facebook. Welcome, Lindia Godres. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Welcome to the party. Let's see. Always interesting on Facebook, right? Excuse me. My name is Lindia Godres. I am French by nationality. I am married to George Coney, a Spanish citizen. He worked as a consulting engineer in the French Republic for 9 years and died in a car accident. I had to contact you this way because I wanted to do something very important. You seem a little suspicious. How did you know I seem suspicious before you sent the message? You don't know me. It's true that I don't know you. I suffer from a terminal form of stomach cancer. As I said, my doctor told me my days were few due to my deteriorating. Well, I hope you, I wish you the best. Oh, because Destiny is saying she's triggered and everyone is triggered by the word is a bad faith argument. I agree. But again, this is the tactic. This is the tactic. He sees that if I can get her flustered, then she's going to stick on this same point. She's going to she's going to dig her heels in on this point. He sees that he's winning on this point. So why would he stick on a different point? Dig in. This is what I'm telling you guys. This is exactly what I want you to be picking up. This is exactly why we're watching this. Not about, is this racist or is that racist? Is that... Good job, Opus. Definitely spam. Misanthropic Altruist said he is pointing to consequentialism. Gwanzik said, I agree with her notions, but she does seem to be having a more emotional argument about racism rather than arguing the facts that would disprove Destiny's systemic racism claim. I hate that phrase. Just systemic racism. Oh, I hate it. Welcome to the internet. Going to a lot of what I was dealing with on Thanksgiving. All emotion, no real fact or argument. So then you should be noticing how well Destiny is doing at staying in the pocket of where. So if he wanted to move the conversation in a different way and be more productive and not win, this is a situation where you do want to win. You can have the conversation if you can have it, but when you're in this situation, you do want to win over understanding. That's unfortunately the nature of these kinds of debates. But she's getting emotional and he's being calm. And so even though we don't agree with him and we essentially agree with her, he is winning the debate because of the tactics. No fact or real argument.
Racist in this entire thing. I'm not telling you that the laws were racist. In fact, I think there are a lot of well-intentioned laws that end up having bad outcomes that weren't racist. I don't think that our crime laws are racist or our drug laws are racist.
But that's the topic of this conversation.
First of all, the topic of our conversation was about racism in the police force, not in our actual legislation or laws. You brought up the crack cocaine versus powder cocaine.
Okay, so let's go back to the police force.
Okay.
Because you were talking about stop.
Hey, where's her flag for refocusing?
And frisk and things like that. So here we go. They're laws.
Sure. So, well, stop and frisk were activities that police did, but it was about the police force and the way that they engaged with stop and frisk. So we can back. Okay, so I still don't think we agree with what systemic racism is, but we'll see if we get there. Although this particular thing doesn't actually require any understanding of systemic racism. So there's a really popular study that is published by Nature that they talk about. And I'm sure you've heard this one before. So there's an idea that basically there were over 100 million traffic stops that were analyzed from 21 different state patrol agencies and 35 different municipal police. And what they found was that when they tried to control for whether or not it was light outside or dark outside, you actually find out that police officers are more likely to pull over Black people when they can see the race versus at night when it's harder to see into the car. this is something that's been demonstrated with like a high confidence interval over like the study was over 100 million traffic stops. It seems like when you start to see stuff like that, that might be evidence that maybe police are working from some biases that are unjustified.
Okay. But there's been other studies that have been contradictory to that, like when the DOJ did their investigation.
So here is where Destiny would be justified in saying, okay, where is your source? You know, I hate that. Where's your source? Source? Because he started with a source. So she's now saying, well, there's studies that say different than your source that you have brought. Then it's like, okay, what is that source? What are those studies? What is that? But if you're just having a conversation, then don't be the asshole. Well, what's your source?
There's been other studies that have been contradictory to that, like when the DOJ did their investigation of the Philadelphia police force and found 91 recommendations on how they could do better, but that there was no racial bias there at all.
And again, I that makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. A lot of classism can look like racism. That doesn't mean that racism doesn't exist. That it's just a point that maybe we should be aware that classism and racism can look exactly the same.
For which police force?
Philadelphia.
Hey.
I don't know about Philadelphia. I'm not here to argue.
It was the Department of Justice did a study. I mean, they went in and they.
So yeah, we get a false equivalence. One study about a single police force is falsely portrayed as an equivalent to the nature study. This is clearly a lefty because I don't know the nature study, but obviously it was a much more wider scope. And she's talking about just one police force.
They went over all crime logs because there was an uptick in violent interactions with police and perpetrators. And so they went and did a study. I mean, so there's plenty of studies that have been done that will like contradict and affirm and deny both sides here. Like that, like you can pick one out, that's fine. But like, you know,
I'm trying to pick out like a study that catalogs over 100 million traffic stops.
Does, don't they?
Well,
I mean,
no.
Whoa. Did she just self-snitch there? I think she just self-snitched. Did she just say that? I'm just quote mining because that's what everybody does. I think that's what I just heard.
Now that's fine, but like
wait.
affirm and deny both sides here. Like that, like you can pick one out. That's fine, but like you know.
I'm trying to pick out like a study that catalogs over 100 million traffic stops.
That's what everybody does. You didn't even know what he was going to say. He's saying, I'm trying to pick a study that catalogs over 100 million traffic stops, meaning the best sample size, as opposed to one single police force. She thought he's going to say, I'm just looking for something that goes to my conclusion or something. And she said, well, everybody does that. Oops. I mean, a lot of people do, but at least people try to be more representative of the actual issue and not just their position.
Both sides here, like that, like you can pick one out, that's fine. But like, you know,
I'm trying to pick out like a study that catalogs over 100 million traffic stops.
Don't they?
Well,
I mean,
because I've picked out a
called it. She's now trying to backtrack. She's like, well, I mean, like, doesn't everybody like, what?
You know,
I'm trying to pick out like a study that catalogs over 100 million traffic stops.
See, she thought he was going to say, I'll pick a study that goes to my my conclusion. And she's like, well, that's what everybody does. And she doesn't realize immediately, so she doubles down.
I'm trying to pick out like a study that catalogs over 100 million traffic stops.
That's what everybody does.
I mean,
for the most part. I've picked out a study that includes over 100 million traffic stops, and you're citing me something about one investigation into the Philadelphia Police Department. I didn't come here to argue about the Philadelphia Police Department. I came here to talk about like.
And what year was that study done? Just out of curiosity. I've heard about it, but I don't remember what year it was done. What year was that done?
So now she is the one who has been reminded of a DOJ study of the Philadelphia police force that is simply not relevant to the conversation because we're not talking about the Philadelphia police force. We're talking about the laws and all of the police as a system. Even if I don't agree with the framing of that conversation, that is the conversation. If you want to move the conversation onto your grounds, then you have to do the work to move it there and make a way to define systemic racism in a way that It can't be just, well, like MA said, well, we don't know. It could be this, it could be that. You should be on his ass about a real definition for systemic racism that cannot be confused with systemic classism. But you're not. And that's why Destiny's winning.
I believe that it was over at least 10 years ago, right?
Well, it collects, it was published in 2020, but the data set that it collects is over a wide period of time. I don't know. I don't know like how many years they collected the data through, but the study itself was published in 2020.
I may say I've never heard debate, bro, bring up methodology or even going deeper than an article, circumventing paywalls and digging into actual raw studies and research. I mean, people definitely do it. It's certainly not it's certainly not commonplace. Most people will just find an article, read the abstract. I mean, generally, as long as you understand the study, as long as you understand the methodology and the sample size and the conclusion, you don't need to know exactly what the methodology of each and every little step, unless that becomes relevant, in which it might. But for the most part, there's a reason that they have the abstract and the conclusion. I'm not saying that you should only ever go off that. And if somebody says something different, well, you didn't read the methodology, but your conclusion from that is actually not, because even though this is right, but most times you'll be all right. Just go a little bit deeper than the headline. That's it.
Yeah, I think the data was collected earlier, if I remember correctly.
It might have been, but
she's just. I mean, but like the thing is that what the big topics have been is that it have been like more. The reason that we're even having this conversation is because of BLM and George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. Hold on. I got to cut you off. You're going to do this, okay? I don't want to get roped into larger BLM, blah, blah, blah. I'm only here. The only question that I'm curious about, because I have plenty of criticisms for all of those organizations and for all of things like that. But so I'm not here to defend BLM or anything. I'm just asking very simply the question of, is there like systemic racism potentially? Or are there maybe a lot of like cops that think they're well-meaning, but they do things that contribute to bad racist outcomes that we don't want in the police force?
Why can't they be bad outcomes that we don't want that aren't racist? Is that not a possibility where even though they are well-intentioned, that they're doing things that lead to bad outcomes that aren't based on race? Why is that not an opportunity? Why is that not an option in your mind? And where the fuck is this bitch bringing that point up? I mean, come on.
Very specifically,
but that's what's important. We have to make sure that we that we identify like people that have good intentions that are not racist intentions. There may be some disparate outcomes, but that's not proof of racism.
But you need to meet him and so that he understands that you understand that there's a difference between what he is referring to as racism and what he is referring to as systemic racism. You are correct. But again, this was the main counter from the very first three. We've already established that. And Destiny keeps saying bad outcomes, bad outcomes, bad outcomes. So you have to ask him, why are they bad? What is bad about them? Are they disproportionate? Are they too harsh? Are they this? That is where the conversation needs to go. Opus said, I think there are far too many bad cops, actually. Racist and otherwise. I agree.
I'm not trying to prove racism. So for the fourth time.
But you are, because that's what we're doing.
For the fourth time, I don't know how many more times I'm going to say this. For the fourth time.
I don't know how many more times you're going to say it because you clearly don't get it.
Okay, for the fourth time, I am not trying to say that cops are racist or they're these horrible racist, intentionally bad actors. That's not what I'm looking at.
She's in the orange now.
That's not what I care about. Well, I would care if that was the case. I don't generally think that's the case in most of the United States. What we're looking at is the police as an institution. Mm-hmm. Do they act in ways that we could call systemically racist? Do they contribute to racialized outcomes for no good reason? That's what I'm looking for. I'm not trying.
And I would say no. They might lead to classist outcomes. But that's the question. That's the argument that we can have. Okay, how do you know that it's racist versus classist? Why is that question not being asked?
I'm trying to figure out if all police are racist.
It's not for no good reason. It's for reasons like I explained, where they're trying to actually. Listen, if you look at the people that are being arrested or whatever by cops, they're still committing the crimes.
But the problem
let's talk about like violent crimes.
Yeah, so we can talk about, okay, it's not, okay, they are, but there are still bad outcomes that are disproportionately impacting Black people.
Are they though? That is begging the question. I'm not even disagreeing with you, but that is the thing that you have to prove. So you can't just say they're bad outcomes, and that's your argument for there being bad outcomes. The burden of proof for the outcome to be determined bad is on Destiny. And she is failing by not realizing that. That is a claim. These are bad outcomes. Okay, fine. I accept your claim. Now support it with some evidence. Oh, you can't? Okay, that means you're wrong. Or at least that you're not right.
They are, but there are still bad outcomes that are disproportionately impacting black people over white people or Hispanic people. So the DOJ released, if we want to move on from the nature thing, which I don't know if we ever saw that, but the DOJ released a big special report on the police use of non-fatal violence, covered the years from 2002 to 2011. And when you dug into this, even when people were being pulled over for crimes. So like the headline fact is like 4.9% of blacks experience a use of force during stops compared to 1.8% of whites and 2.5% of Hispanics.
Okay, and so then we have to dig into what were those stops like. Just listing off numbers, we already agreed disparity is not discrimination. So just saying the numbers is not enough. We have to know more than just the raw numbers. That's like when people are saying that Palestine is the good guy because more Palestinians are dead. That's not how that works. That's not how that works. So he says the cops follow the law. The law is classist. It is. So he said that's a weak position. They would have gone to jail anyway. No, dear, that's not how rights work.
But even when you look at things like when suspected of a crime, 11% of blacks experience violence versus 5% of whites. If you had 3 or more contacts with police officers, so they've pulled you over 3 times and you're in the system, the chance of violence, if you're white, is 5.7%, Hispanic 9.3%, black 11.7%.
Okay.
Disparity is not discrimination. And they said, is racism one of the many possible phenomena that generated from our corrupt institutions? Yes, I would imagine the new original sin of racism would be. There you go. All right, fair enough, fair enough.
But look at the dates again of your thing. And as you know, so I'm sure you've done your homework, that violent interactions with police officers as a whole for white and black people have been on the decline. So you just set up to what, 2011, right? Was your date?
10 years ago,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, but 10 years ago. So that's not today. And they're like legit. If you look at violent interactions with police officers from now, from the last since 2017, it's steadily on the decline. Number one. Number two is for every 10,000 white crimes, for every 10,000 crimes committed by white people, 4 white people will die. 4 white perps will die at the hands of cops. For every 10,000 black people that commit crimes, 3 black people will get. And that's from FBI statistics. 3 black people will die at the hands of cops. So
it's basically just saying per capita, it's lower for black people than it is for white people.
So the black people are committing more of the crimes. White people are actually being killed more than black people. And then you're going to say that the police force is more racist and leads to disparities in policing.
I don't.
Again, she's still stuck on this idea that the police are being racist. That's not his argument. You cannot tear down an argument that you don't understand. This is legitimately what she thinks that he is saying, even though 4 times he has specifically said that's not the conversation.
I don't know how to contextualize the numbers of for every 10,000 white crimes, 3 white people die.
Just look at the FBI statistics.
So FBI statistics are not a study. If I'm trying to put together information or I'm trying to get an understanding of how something is working, I don't just open the FBI statistics, look up the word black, find out how many people died, and then copy paste that into an argument.
But you literally just did that. You literally just did that. We were here. You said, well, these percentages of white people, those percent of that people. You literally just did that. Shout out to Dude Dad Attack. Welcome to the party. Good to see ya, brother. So who had the soccer mom in the debate bro scene? She's a chore. She's a chore to listen to. And it's really frustrating. But this is why I thought this was so perfect. Is because we agree with her position. We don't agree with her. We disagree with Destiny, but we all think Destiny's winning the debate. And that's the point. We're not arguing our personal positions on this. We're looking at what is happening. We're studying this debate. to be better at future debates.
I don't think that's a good way to look at data. I don't think that's a good way to figure out what's going on. There are a lot of questions that need to be asked, like, well, why are people being stopped? Are there people that are committing more crime than another group?
Yeah, again, that's a huge missed opportunity for her to be like, wait. You don't trust the FBI? Now, again, we can be like, yeah, the FBI, but you have to understand the context that you're in. For Destiny to be saying, oh, FBI statistics are bullshit. Like, okay, well then why do you trust the FBI and the CIA going after Trump? You could spin that around real quick, but you have to have these cards. You have to have these in your mind as the conversation is happening.
Like, where are the people being stopped at? I
mean, what would you rely on for your methodology? Because surveys are notoriously inconsistent. What would your methodology be for collecting data information other than looking at raw data?
Well, I mean, it depends. So the DOJ special report on the police use of non-fatal force.
Hey, shout out to America Man 69. Shout out to Doodad Attack. Welcome to the party, guys. Good to see you. Glad you are here. Welcome. Well, Nick, so this is what I meant about Destiny's tactic of taking a side argument and just running it into the ground. He could easily see it isn't going anywhere, but chooses to stay on the topic to rack up points.
Bingo!
That's what he's supposed to do. This is a criticism of her, not of him. This is a criticism of her. She is failing. He is doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing. She's just failing. Zippy said, question, she's using, is she using police rather than the institution of law enforcement, or is she using police as in the individual cop? I think it's the latter. I think it's the individual cop. That's why she keeps getting caught up, because she's trying to think of racism as people doing a thing, when I agree that's the only definition of racism, but Destiny does not. That's not what he's operating on. And so until you can knock that down, you can't be like, oh, well, I don't accept that. You have to do the work and get there. MA said, my personal position is that racism is bad. That is the only permitted permission. A coincidence, surely. Good one. Easy Dubs, Dressman. I don't know what that means, but gang, welcome to the party.
Relies on the fact that every time a police officer pulls over somebody, there's a report that's written. The nature study relating to traffic stops goes off of the reports that are filed by different state patrols.
Not every police force has to submit their data. You know that.
So I understand that if you want, we can play the ultimately skeptical position. You're free to do that. Epistemically, it's fun if we want to like argue nihilism or something. But in terms of like going by what's in front of us, right?
Which is raw data.
What?
What is that? What was that red flag for? What does that have to do with immigrant success?
Which is raw data.
Raw data, it does not a study make, like we can be infinitely skeptical of things, but like if your husband catches you fucking somebody, you say, well, that's actually my secret twin, right? Like it might be the case that that's true. And you could legitimately argue like, well, you don't know if I have a secret twin or not, but that doesn't really make an argument, right? So right now, when I look through the data on stuff, wait, hold on real quick. When I look, I'm not going to the extreme, because when I look through.
That was just a hyperbolic example there.
No, that was an.
Remember, red flag. This is the red flag she deserves. That if somebody cannot engage with the concept, a principle, in a different context, in a hypothetical or an analogy, well, that's just that's not the thing that we're talking about. No, I know it's the principle of the thing that we're talking about. I'm taking it out of what we're talking about because you're not able to understand it when we're talking about what we're talking about. So I'm taking it out of the context that we're talking about so that you can understand what I'm trying to say. Yeah, well, not necessarily. She's failing to understand what Destiny is defining as systemic racism. The lexical discussion, meaning the definitions of the words within this conversation, may not be the same. That's what she was trying to say about racism. The word racism. That racism means somebody doing a racism, but in this context, they've already established that that's not what they're talking about when they say systemic racism. So if she keeps going back to that, that's ground that we've already tread. Context said, yes, he's winning the debate, but the conversation isn't being done justice. He's just debate masturbating instead of moving the conversation anywhere with value. Again, that is her fault. That is not his job to do the debate for her. This is, again, he's doing his job. She is not. Just because you disagree with his position doesn't mean he's doing anything wrong. This is exactly what you're supposed to do in a debate. If you found a little pocket where you're making her look stupid, absolutely, you stay there. Now, if we're trying to not have a debate, if we're trying to have a discussion, if we're trying to have a town hall, if we're trying to do, that's a different context that's a different conversation. That's a different style of conversation. But this is not, the goal here is not for Destiny to convince Lisa of anything, or Lisa to convince Destiny of anything. The goal here is for them to look good to us. When they look good to us, we are more open to listening to their points. So when you can look good in a debate, then you can go back to your own platform and not be confrontational, not be using tactics, and actually explain these things. But you have to earn that, and for better or worse, this is the gauntlet that you have to get through in order to have that respect, in order to have that platform. You have to be able to take on these conversations. And if you can see, or if you can't see, that Destiny's being bad faith, or he's, just going in circles, and you're not the one, hey, we're going in circles about this. Why don't we go back to this? That's not what I'm talking about when I say racism. If you're not pointing these out, then you're just dropping the ball. You can't blame Destiny for winning the debate because he's winning the debate.
What?
Oba said if she had half a brain, she would ask if he is actually interested in debating or dismissing her every time she cites data. I mean, it would at least, put him on his heels. It would at least change up what's happening, and it's not looking good for her. It's not looking good for her. It's okay for him to cite data, but not her. Yeah, I would talk about a missed opportunity. Talk about a missed opportunity. Fine. It was legitimate when she was talking about, when he was talking about a study with 100 million stops or something, and she was talking about one study on the Philadelphia police department. Fine. But when you're just, I don't believe FBI stats. Okay. I mean, if you want to take that claim, fine. But let's point that out and show everybody out there that all your lefty friends that you don't trust the FBI. That's what she should be doing. And she's not. Destiny is doing a good job at debate. He always likes to twist the knife. Yeah, exactly. These are modern day debate tactics. And what channel is this from? Modern day debate. They're not developed to win over an opponent or an audience. They're not about getting the truth. They're about winning. I will say that they are definitely about winning over the audience. But they're about winning over the audience based on optics, not necessarily on the merits of points. I will definitely agree there. But that it's about the audience. It's definitely about the audience. It's just about appealing to the audience's emotions. Context, I guess if you're looking for winners and losers, then that works. I'd hope people are actually looking for understanding and truth. Have you been outside, sir? Have you been outside? Have you been on social media? What people do you know outside of here are looking for understanding and truth? Nah, brother. That's just something we do. That's just something we do. Open so the leftists do this all the time. They ask for examples, then they call the example anecdotal. Yep. Not really, but I mean, hey, I would take the W. Why not? Let me check if I are keeping up in the context of this debate. Systemic racism is indirect racism caused by the system. She's hung up on racism as a person-to-person thing.
Bingo.
Exactly. Lower tier conservatives like her don't understand what systemic racism might be, so she can only point to interpersonal bigotry. There you go. Yep. There you go. All right.
I'm not going to the extreme, because when I look
That was
through
just a hyperbolic example there.
No, that was an example of how absurd it is to be skeptical when all the data points in one direction and say, well, it's not perfect.
It doesn't all point to one direction. I just gave you data that doesn't. And you're saying it's not from a study that hasn't been done by some peer-reviewed people that have some, bias inherently in them in general, right?
If a bias exists,
when you look at raw data, that's what it says.
So raw data is what we use to invade Iraq for weapons of.
So it says failure on the main claim. Lisa has shown no intention of facing the main claim. This, in addition to her multiple misrepresentations, shows her inability or lack of desire to debate the issue. So again, if you are somebody who is watching this, then, and maybe you're already a fan of Destiny, but you're not die hard, and you're like, I mean, he talk nice, but I don't really know about what. And then you see this. How much more likely are you going to be willing to listen to his other positions? That is what Destiny is doing, trying to gain more people to listen to him in the future. That also seems to be what Lisa's trying to do, but she's just doing a very bad job at it. Yeah, I want to post, Guam. I'm looking for you to only understand that my truth is the only truth. If you disagree, then you're every kind of ism and ist under the sun.
How dare you?
Of mass destruction.
Actually, wait. Pretty sure this is a little bit of projection. Dilly. Good one.
So I don't know what that is absolutely true. That's what raw data does for us. So I don't know if you want to use raw data. I mean, I'm sure that we could sit here and we could throw.
Studies. I mean, that's what I did.
On one side, there is a lot of interrupting, Lisa. I do have to jump in really quick.
He's like, shut up, yeah.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
We could do raw data numbers all you want. I mean, we can go dig through, and you can jangle a statistic to say almost anything you want, depending on how you want to look at things. But this is what the point of a study is that we get somebody to look at the data, we get somebody to contextualize stuff, and I think that that's an important part of what we do. And even for the conservative argument, that's an important part of what we do, right? If somebody presents you a study and they say, look at this, police officers killed 20 times more black people than white people in the city. Sometimes it's valuable for a conservative to be able to say, well, hold on, if we contextualize this and we say, well, maybe in this city, black people committed 20 times more crime. So it makes.
So I said it's not his job to make her arguments for her. And then he goes on and makes her arguments for her.
It's a number not actually that insane. This is why we have studies. It helps us guide the conversation.
Looking at just raw data.
No,
that's still, yes, it is. You're looking at raw data. So who was arrested more there? That would just be in that scenario that you just gave. It would be black people.
He specifically said, looking at the context, that once the liberal throws out the numbers, then you may have a look at his face. He's like, oh my God, this fucking bitch. He's specifically saying that. He's making the argument that she's about to make.
It's not like we're not surveying people to see. It's through the raw data. You just made my point.
Okay, I'm just curious.
That is projection. Projection.
So in your mind, what do you think would be the difference between raw data and a study?
Well, because I studied behavioral economics, that's all I did was make up studies and.
This is not going to go well for her. So when he's talking about, so when people say that 50 or 60% of the unarmed black people that were, or 60% of the unarmed people that were killed by cops were black. That's raw data. When you look at the numbers of the related things, okay, well, how many crimes did they commit? How many of other races? How many were not armed but reached for the gun? How many were those things? Then that's statistical analysis. You look at, well, I mean, not necessarily, but you do that multiple times and then you have data, but it's not the raw data. That's what the raw part is. That it has not been analyzed.
Experiments all the time. There's difference.
Wait,
There's
can you say that again? You studied what?
Behavioral economics.
You studied behavioral economics. Okay, yes. Does that mean that you took 2 classes as part of an undergrad, or
no,
you actually?
I went to the.
Surely, I picked up on Destiny being a little nicer to female opponents. It's a pattern. Sure, yeah, because again, If you treat a woman the way you would treat a man, then you're not going to look as good. This is what it's all about, guys. I understand that. And like I'm right there with you, Glomtag, about hoping that people are interested in more than this. But they're not. And they vote. So we can sit and talk to each other about the things that we care about. Or we can do this and sit together and talk about the things that we care about. When doing this stuff might actually change things, might actually give us a chance to move to that place where people do actually care. But we're not there. We're not there. Glomtag said, I honestly don't care that Destiny is winning. I guess I'm just making it very apparent that I'm more interested in conversations than winners and losers in conversation. And again, I'm right there with you. I think we all are. That's why we are a group, is that we've coalesced around this very thing. But again, that's us. There's only a couple of thousand of us. There's rarely more than 15 of you here. So I wish the entire world was like us too. But just saying, I wish the world was just like me is not going to help me make the world the way I want to make it. And
the University of Pennsylvania for my master's in behavioral economics. Okay?
So
I got a PhD.
Master's in behavioral economics, and you're telling me with a straight face that just numbers, that raw data is the same as a study.
I will tell you without a doubt, okay, that you do need to define terms and things like that when you're looking at raw data, fine. But you're talking about studies that are done from surveys, which are notoriously not reliable, right? And from multiple different forms of experimental data and things like that. The methodology used, I don't know exactly what that methodology is in that study, but the best thing you can do is define your terms of what's like quantities that you are looking at when you're doing analysis. You define the terms, and the raw data tells you the real deal.
What she's trying to say is correct, but she's just using the wrong words, and because Destiny is using the that could be a sentence in another another conversation that would be perfectly acceptable, because we're specifically talking about raw data for statistical analysis. She's conflating the two.
Have
you ever heard of econometrics?
You're so funny. I mean, like, my point is
well, I'm just of all the degrees you could say that you have. This is
cut me off, but I can't cut you off.
Well, you're cutting me off so much, but go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off cutting me off. Go ahead.
Right. Thank you. So if we're looking at raw data, right, and more Black people commit more of the crimes than white people do, but yet still more white people are dying at the hands of cops, then how is the system inherently racist? Now, are there some things that have disparate outcomes? But there's a whole lot of things that do. Do the police favor women? Are they anti-sexist because more men are being put in prison?
That would just be sexist, honey. Both ways, it's sexist.
Women? No. Right? More men are committing more of the crime than women are. That's statistics. That's just plain old raw data. Right? That doesn't mean just because more men are being put in prison than women doesn't mean that they favor men or they're just trying to lock up men. And
finally, she finally got around to it. Finally. Now she's actually saying the thing that matters. He has been claiming this whole time, bad outcomes, bad outcomes, bad outcomes, bad outcomes. Okay. Are they actually bad? That is the question. You can't say that they're bad when we're questioning whether or not they're bad.
And that's the argument that you're making for white and Black. And that's not accurate.
Bingo. So let's go by the male-female thing. If I look at the data, it seems to be way more men are put into prison than women.
It's not only that a master's in behavior economics appeal to authority and to expertise is no excuse to be debating this poorly, but all the reasons why you should not be debating this poorly. Well, we all know Destiny. Destiny is not going hard right now. Destiny is not going hard right now. You should not be failing this badly when he's just chilling. I got a PhD.
are, whether we're talking per capita or anything. Seems like way more men are put into prison as women. So
women do actually get lower sentencing rates too for the same crimes.
So how can I? So if I'm looking at the raw numbers there, wouldn't it lead me to believe that like maybe everybody is sexist against men?
No. That would lead you to believe that men commit more crimes than women. Why do I feel like, because he asked that so condescendingly, I feel stupid for thinking that. Let's do this again.
How can I? So if I'm looking at the raw numbers there, wouldn't it lead me to believe that like
raw numbers being more men arrested or men spending more time in prison?
Maybe everybody is sexist against men.
I mean, I'm asking you. That's because that's the argument you're making on the other side.
There you go. There you go. That's exactly right. He is specifically making the argument that because there are more black people that are arrested and because black people get more time in prison, that is systemic racism. And so now she's finally gotten onto a point where, okay, are you saying that the legal system is systemically sexist as well because there's more men than women? That's his argument. Finally, it only took 32 and a half minutes to move off the first point. And again, this is why we are watching this, so that you don't look as stupid as she does.
No,
it is.
I'm truly at the bottom of a pit of despair here. What was here? I'm actually just so I'm intensely curious.
Now he's coping. We got him. Shout out to Captain Gooby in the building. Welcome to the party. Oh, this would have been a great introduction to Destiny if you are not familiar. I mean, he's a lefty for sure, hardcore. But I think that he is, one, very intelligent, two, very honest, three, very well read, four, a very good debater, and for the most part, will be as good faith as I personally need to be to understand where he's coming from. So I think in this conversation, he's not being the most charitable. But because she's so stupid, I can see where, he's just playing with his food, essentially. But welcome to the party. Miss Anthropic Ultra said yes to her question, though. Turning point was the Duluth model being instituted as doctrine even after it was debunked. That can be proven. Wonder how he will deflect. Well, now he's like, because he's gained so much credibility over the last 32 and a half minutes of this conversation. Now, and he's like, I can't even believe how, all right, like, okay, I guess let me figure out a way that I can break this down so that your dumb little lady brain can figure it, all the while not having a clue what the fuck he's going to say. He not once has he talked like that this whole time. But as soon as she gets him on the point.
That like, maybe everybody is sexist against men.
Again, being like, bro, that's your thing. There's more blacks, so there must be races against blacks. And now he's asking, well, if there's more men, does that mean you believe that everybody is sexist against men? No, that's your argument. So he realizes it, and then he's like, fuck.
I mean, I'm asking you. That's because that's the argument you're making on the other side.
No,
Oh, look. Okay, so look at the smile, and look how quickly it disappears.
I mean, I'm asking you. That's because that's the argument you're making on the other side.
Smile, and he's like, wait. Oh, fuck. Is that the argument they're making? Oh, shit. Smile.
It is.
I'm truly at the bottom of a pit of despair here.
Pit of despair here.
What was here? I'm actually just so intensely curious. Wait. What? I'm just curious. What was your master's?
Because more black
No.
What was your master's in? Because that's so directly relevant to the sexism question that you just asked. Destiny, you had it. You had it in the palm of your hand, brother.
No, hold on. Now we have like this epistemic divide of, is there a difference between raw data and a study?
No, just get to the point.
No, wait, we can't. We're at an impasse right now. Okay?
I will explain it so that you can respond. Let me finish.
Okay.
It's simple this way. You are saying
that
more Black people are incarcerated because of our police system would be systemically racist. Yet men are more incarcerated than women. Are you saying that the policing state is, come
on,
anti-misogynist?
Why can't you just say sexist? Let's see. Put a 1 in the chat. Okay, put a 1 in the chat if you think she's actually right for the first time. Put a 2 in the chat if you think she's right, but Destiny will be able to deflect or do something, and put a 3 in the chat if you think that Destiny's career is over right here. Put a 1. That's the number. There we go. All right, let's see.
Are they misandrous?
That's the argument you're making.
This is a bad example because I would argue that. I do think that men get unfair sentencing compared to women, and there are a whole bunch of issues related to like domestic violence and stuff that aren't taken as seriously on the woman's side versus the man's side. So I mean, I would argue that, but
based, I think. I mean, that's ridiculous and stupid. But I mean, talking about the way he will deflect, I mean, that's how you do it. Just, yup. I'm consistent. I believe that it's all sexist and racist systemically based on the raw numbers. If that's what you believe, brother, disparity, even though we already 1, 2, and no 3. We already established disparity is not discrimination, but that's where you're banking on. All right.
I feel like
wow. Okay. I edited out some conversation about her school and major, which ends up being irrelevant to the next argument. Despite how biased this editing is, I completely believe them.
From that framing, it seems to be that if we were to ask a question, so let's say I was to ask a question, what's the best way to sell a product, right? Like, if we were looking at like the raw data, we might just say that like, oh, a cheaper product will always sell better. Or like the raw data of like, well, this sold more on this store, so it should sell more in this store. These would be ways of looking at raw data, but we would want somebody that knows like behavioral kind of stuff. And it's like, well, hold on, this sold better in this market because of this reason. Or it might be a lower price here, but people actually will buy things over here if it's a higher price because it feels like a catalyst.
So that's the difference between at least what he is saying, between raw data and statistical analysis. God, does he deep? Hey, when you know how to do what is happening on screen in your mind, then even if you find yourself like, oh shit, she just called me out completely. How many people out of the 100,000 people who saw this and there
are more white people
and the 342,000 people who watched this original thing, how many of them do you think actually is like, oh, Destiny again? How many versus how many people do you think like, oh, I guess Destiny won. I guess Destiny is right. Again, I agree. That's not how people should determine their positions. But it is. Said that Bagultrus said red pill osmosis, spending all that time around Sneeko and Fresh and Fit. I think that ABBA from Abba and Preach has been a way better influence on Destiny than either of those two. Because despite the like, obviously Sneeko is talk about battle bottom, but I think the fact that he and Myron do have a bit of a working relationship. There's room for the back and forth. ABBA, I think even more so. I think that he's willing to go in there and willing to and you do see the red pill osmosis happening. You definitely see it. Monted Bo, who said Destiny can speak with incredible confidence even when he's wrong. He is a great salesman. That is what I'm trying to tell you. You need to be a great salesman of your own ideas. That is the economy. That is the landscape that we are living in. You have to be a great salesman for your beliefs and your brand and your this and your that, because that is what translates to culture, what translates to votes, what translates to the movement of our culture. That's what it is. So again, I wish this was a, just calm discussion of the facts and we came to a conclusion and we could move on and not have to talk about this ever again. That would be great. That would be awesome. That's not life. That's not life. It gets a little messier than that. And we got to be prepared for that.
Still getting that from data. You're still getting that from data.
We are, but it's not. But at that point, when you start to make interpretations of the data, it's no longer raw data. Now it's been like filtered by somebody that knows what they're looking at. It's been filtered by somebody that is now like giving you an interpretation where you're like, okay, listen, I understand that it looks like this thing here. It looks like if we sell this for this price over here, that it'll do really well over here. But
I have a perfect example. Put TLA in the chat if I forget.
Actually, we can sell it for way more because the people that live here are way more wealthy. So it's kind of raw data, but you're taking all of that raw data and you're like filtering it through, and in econ, especially in econometrics, we're filtering it through like all these complicated algorithms and formulas to try to determine like, okay, well, if we do this, it'll change this variable or this will change that variable in order to figure out like how things will turn out, right? It's not just—
But that's still looking at raw data.
No. So I have a perfect example for this. So many of you are familiar with the lead attorney. Shout out to the lead attorney. You may also be familiar with Ruslan KD. I think he's a Christian dating. I don't really know what he does, but he talks about dating from a Christian perspective, and he was on the lead attorney's thing. Let me actually see if I can find it. Ruslan was saying that like something like 90% of, here we go. Perfect.
And this is something that's very counterintuitive. Guys,
this is, again, the context being raw data, which is what Ruslan KD is going to bring up, and the analysis from a 20-year divorce attorney. So I think they already said it, but he said, yeah, shout out to the lead. Ruslan KD had already said that men who fight for their kids, there's something like a 90% success rate. So you need to fight for your kids more. That's where we're at in the conversation.
Divorce attorneys will tell men not to fight for their children.
Why?
Because most men, if they fight for their children, will not get their children.
Gonna lose.
This is very complex, guys. So let me tell you something about a divorce case. Divorce cases can be, most divorce cases are fairly cheap, relatively speaking. I mean, they could.
I'm gonna speed him up. I can't, guys. He talks. I love him, but he talks so slow.
It's not these Dr. Dre types of divorces, right?
Sure.
Most divorces you can get.
Just let me know if it's too fast.
Resolved for under 15 grand. You can. There's one type of case that you can never get resolved for 15 grand. It is the most expensive type of case that a regular person is going to have. And that type of case is a custody battle. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about custody battles, those things can get easily 35, 50, 75, 115. Now,
I mean, shout out to anybody who's had to go through a divorce with kids. I mean, a divorce in general, it sounds horrible, but a divorce when kids are in the picture, I don't feel for you because I don't know, but as much as I can, I'm so sorry.
Imagine you're a man and you've got four credit cards, and you come to me and you say, Lee, listen, I make $60,000 a year, but I want to fight for my 2 kids. And you're going to tell me the facts of your case, and you got a little something. You got some arguments, but it's going to be a real battle because the judges are biased against men. And so we're going to have to put up a ton of evidence.
Yep.
What are we going to have to put up? Well, we got to do discovery. That's going to cost you 5, 10, 15,000. We got to take her deposition. Mm-hmm. But then we also need to get the kids some counseling.
Oh God.
And we need to get some experts on the case. We need to get the psychiatrist. We need to get the kids evaluated. We need all their reports. We need for these experts to show up to court.
God damn.
And so you can make $60,000 a year, and I can run up your bill to 80 grand, which you cannot afford. Mm-hmm. So I have to tell you, I have to say, listen, you got a little something, but if I had to say whether you're going to win or lose, I don't think it's 50%. Mm-hmm. There are attorneys who will tell you, listen, pay me the 80,000,
yep,
just put it all on your credit cards, and I'm really going to try, and we're probably going to win. And what happens when you lose? They're going to look at you and say, well, we tried. We gave it the college try.
We tried. No, I'll let him go a little bit more, and then
they're going to take their 80 grand, the 80 grand you paid them, and they're going to fix their house and put their kids through a couple of semesters of college. Good attorneys don't do that. Good attorneys do the opposite. Good attorneys say, listen, what's going to happen when I start charging this 80 grand, you get up to 30 grand and you're going to come to me and tell me, you're going to say, Lee, I ain't got no money. What am I going to do? Do you know what I'm going to do, Ruslan? I'm going to drop you as a fucking client because I don't work for free. So now I've got your 30 grand, but your trial isn't going to come for a year and a half. That means you got to get up another 30 grand. You got to get on another attorney's plan to pay for the case.
Guys, if you are not following the lead attorney, what are you doing? Let me actually drop that link right now because this man has done so much for me, man. He is a good dude. I wish I could, catch him more often, but amazing.
So we attorneys tell you, listen, do not fight for custody if you cannot afford to do it. And a custody case is is one of the most expensive cases that a man will ever have, and a normal man, not some NBA player or something like that. And so a lot of times it comes down to and men have tried. And you never hear about the men who spend $75,000 and then they lose, because what happens when they lose the $75,000? Now I've got their $75,000.
Shout out to the Camcast. Welcome to the party, brother.
And now guess what? They have to turn around and pay child support. You got to turn around and pay.
And he's laughing. He's like, that's money for me.
With what money? Right? Because I've already cleaned out their life savings. So good attorneys, we say, listen, instead of doing this whole $75,000 thing, what I can do is try to fight to get the most visitation that I can. And most fathers are like, okay, because I can't afford to enter into an unfair trial, lose, and then turn around and pay child support money with money that I just don't have. Now, what's interesting?
Okay, so I mean, you guys get the point. That just the notion that a high percentage of men who fight for their children win in court. Well, that's because most men are not going to win. So the only men who bring their case in front of the judge are the ones that have a slam dunk case to begin with. And so that's the difference. That's the difference that Lisa is not understanding that Destiny is talking about. And so she's trying to say, I would rather go just on the raw data that 90% of men who fight for their kids win, rather than the statistical analysis that of that 90%, this, that, and the other, that the lead attorney was just talking about. So no, sweetie, sorry, you're wrong again. Let's back this up a little bit.
Filtering it through, and in econ, especially in econometrics, we're filtering it through like all these complicated algorithms and formulas to try to determine like, okay, well, if we do this, it'll change this variable, or this will change that variable, in order to figure out like how things will turn out, right? It's not just.
But that's still looking at raw data, right? I mean, that's still taking data and interpreting it. Now, there are many factors out of this raw data that will contribute to more Black people being incarcerated. Some of that would be fatherless homes.
I got you, Lisa. Hit me up. We'll work on your debate skills, and you'll be golden. You'll be golden. You got good ideas. You just gotta. You're almost there.
Or not fatherless, but not children out of wedlock. Some of it would be, old crime law. Some of it would be poverty. Some of it would be personal decision making. I mean, we're still quantifying all those things, but when you look at the base, and that's what I'm talking about. I'm taking that data. And when you look at it and you break it down and you say, okay, well, the bare numbers tell you that per every 10,000 crimes, more white people that are committed by white people, or vice versa, committed by Black people, more of those people are dying, white people are dying. And that's just one metric. You look at all
that would be the raw data. So you take that raw data and the raw data of how many of these people were reaching for the gun, how many of these people were doing violent crimes. You add all that together, then you have statistical analysis.
All these other things, it's not necessarily do some like old policies or old things from laws and policing. Do they contribute? Yes, to more Black people being incarcerated. But that's not the only thing. And that's exactly what I'm telling you. You look at other data like marriage, just being married. Decreases family wealth by like 98% or something ridiculous, right? So when you're looking at the numbers, I'm talking about numbers, like raw data. I'm not talking about how you feel or what you think the police think or anything
like. This is the leftist cope, but she's on the. This is how far it's seeped into every aspect of our society. Even when you're fighting against the ideology, you're using the ideology.
Oh, just it's not about how we feel. It's just
it
about
seems to
like
be that.
it's it's not about how we feel.
So again, whoever was saying like, oh, you know, he definitely takes it easy on women. He was like, okay, I could go in, but I'm not going to because of how it will look.
It's the idea that taking one number might not give us the complete story for what's going on.
Correct.
So for instance, you don't hear me because you're throwing this 10,000 white crimes versus 10,000.
So this would be like if Ruslan was saying, well, yeah, lead attorney, I totally understand what you're saying, but most of the men who fight for the kids do win. It's like, bro, I thought I just explained this to you. Did you not understand it, or you weren't listening, or what? Because we just addressed this.
Black crimes.
I also threw at you, you know,
more raw numbers.
Out of wedlock marriage rates.
I don't.
too.
So these two things
they all contribute.
I'm sure they do, but these types of discrete things don't give us a good picture of a particular thing. Bingo. So, for instance, even out of wedlock childbirth, that's probably not as big of a problem as people think it is. That's probably like a bigger proxy for your socioeconomic status. For instance, a lot of children that are born out of wedlock are probably born to like poor mothers whose father is no longer around, right? I'm sure that if you're born to a decently wealthy family and the parents just didn't get married, yeah, it's probably not ideal, but you're not living in the ghetto selling crack cocaine, right?
But who's the most impoverished people in our country? It's poor white people that are.
As a per capita
class,
like more people, I don't think
there are more white people on welfare than there are on black people on welfare now today.
And exactly the false equivalence. There's also more white people than there are black people.
Black people are like white people are like 3 times the percentage of the population, right?
Yep, there's still more of them.
Ooh.
And they're not committing as many crimes.
I think we got a comment of the night that will be turned immediately into a poll. Is Destiny? I know my answer. For taking it easy on Lisa.
Dilly dilly.
Great question.
Dilly dilly.
Project. Oh wait, no, it's comment of the night.
Crimes.
Okay, but
you can't just say lower socioeconomic status is the reason that they're committing these crimes.
Yeah, but like we would, if we were going to meaningfully analyze these numbers, we would look at this as like a per capita, not an absolute number of people, right?
I mean, there's an absolute number of people. There are a certain amount of people that commit crimes. There are a certain amount of people that don't, right? And if we break that down into demographics.
Oh, honey, you're digging your own grave here. No, this is not the time to be condescending when you are the stupid one.
More African-American people commit crimes than white people.
I'm tapping out of this one. I can't do it, guys.
True. And so now we're talking about more white people are in the lower socioeconomic state. That's true. So now you're saying that it's socioeconomics that's contributing. It's not necessarily birth rates that matter, but no, it's a combination of all these factors and the policing. And that's my point. The policing is not, the police system or the laws on the books are not responsible at whole, maybe some in part from generations past, but not currently. There are no systemically racist laws on the books now as it stands.
What?
And so,
that's for the fifth time, there isn't.
Shout out to Unban My Heart. Welcome to the party. Said I hate grouping people into groups. And hello. You hate grouping people into groups. Well, people tend to group themselves into groups. What do you mean you don't like, you hate grouping people into groups? I'm very interested.
There's no such thing as a systemically racist law. If there's a racist law, we just call it a racist law.
It's okay, fine, that's what I'm saying. But there's nothing that makes...
Right, sweetie. But according to Destiny's position, just because there are no racist laws and no racist police doesn't mean that systemic racism can't exist. I disagree with that point, but you have not made your point. You're just saying, nuh-uh, nuh-uh, nuh-uh. That's the extent of your argument.
Makes our system right now systemically racism because it means that racism is embedded in the laws and regulations. That's what it means.
So when we look at like stop and frisk, as a policy for New York. We saw, for instance, that black.
So let's see. Oh, wrong one. Sorry, wrong one. You don't get the horn yet. Only when you come in. Anybody in my heart says, sorry, every political stream I've watched today picks a group, decides everything, and they do and hates them. Well, you are in the right place because we got a bunch of, I mean, I guess politically we're all relatively similar, but we do have a bunch of lefties, we have a bunch of Christians, we have a bunch of atheists, we have a bunch of people who are into debate and all that kind of stuff. This is the place where we all come together to understand the truth. And how can we get to the truth? Even if we disagree with each other, we have to be able to get to the truth. We have to be able to have a process to determine these differences. If we want to, get along with each other, we want to have a society that works. We're not all going to agree with each other. But thank you. I try my best. And don't forget to join the free Discord server. And if you become a channel member on YouTube, you get access to the after party.
Blacks and Hispanics were 3 times more likely to be stopped by police than white people, but there was like a similar rate of recovery of contraband and weapons. So why so many more stops if you're not actually like recovering or getting any successful hits?
All right, well, let's think about the areas that you're in, right? So
okay, I'm gonna cut you off real quick, and I know this is mean, but I wanted to tell you that this is my frustration with this debate, is that earlier you were very happy to throw out 2 10,000 numbers at me, and I just threw out one number at you. Now you're very interested in a more qualitative approach. Now you really want to contextualize.
No,
well, I gave you the.
Ooh, set a trap. I didn't even see it. I didn't even see it. Trey said, I've lived around poor white and they definitely commit just as much crime, but I also seen way less police patrolling that area. And, that is something that I think, would be considered. I think that could be considered something that could be changed for the better. That's definitely something that could be changed for the better. I still not ready to call that racism. I think it just by the pure numbers, I'm not ready to accept that. Again, I'm not saying that there are not disparities. I'm not saying that black people don't have a harder time in the justice system. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that I think it is a class issue, not a race issue, or at least more of a class issue than a race issue. So there might be the race aspect here, but I think by and large, I still I'm going to stand on that classism button. So let's go all the way back here and let's see him catch her in this lie. Or not
stop and frisk
regulations. That's what it means.
So when we look at like stop and frisk as a policy for New York, we saw, for instance, that blacks and Hispanics were 3 times more likely to be stopped by police than white people, but there was like a similar rate of recovery of contraband and weapons. Okay. So why so many more stops if you're not actually like recovering or getting any successful hits?
All right, well, let's think about the areas that you're in.
So again, the gotcha that he specifically said that because he knew it was a low sample size that she was going to jump on because it supported her her thing. But I don't know that she actually did that. All she said was, that we have to look further into it. And maybe he got her on the sense that she didn't say we need to look further into like the FBI statistics that she brought up. But I don't know that this is as much as a gotcha.
Contraband and weapons. So why so many more stops if you're not actually like recovering or getting any successful hits?
All right, well, let's think about the areas that you're in, right? So
okay, I'm gonna cut you off real quick, and I know this is mean, but I wanted to tell you that this is my frustration with this debate, is that earlier you were very happy to throw out 2 10,000 numbers at me, and I just threw out one number at you. Now you're very interested in a more qualitative approach. Now you really want to.
Oh, okay. I see what's happening. Is that she's willing to look at the qualitative aspects of the raw numbers, when her counter is that raw data is better than statistical analysis. Oops. So now you care more about the statistical analysis. Yeah, when it benefits you. As opposed to before, you just wanted to throw raw data because it helped you. Okay, I missed it the first time. So one more time.
Recovering or getting this
Regulation law from generations past, but not currently. There are no systemically racist laws on the books now as it stands, and so.
Well, so
that's
for
not
the
case.
fifth time, there's no such thing as a systemically racist law. If there's a racist law, we just call it a racist law.
It's okay, fine. That's what I'm saying. But there's nothing that makes our system right now systemically racism, because it means that racism is embedded in the laws and regulations. That's what it means.
So when we look at like stop and frisk as a policy,
So remember, he already knows what he's doing.
For New York, we saw, for instance, that blacks and Hispanics were 3 times more likely to be stopped by police than white people, but there was like a similar rate of recovery of contraband and weapons.
So remember, her claim, Destiny's claim, is raw data is a misleading tool for coming to conclusions. Her counter was that raw data is better than statistical analysis. So now Destiny has read off some raw data. And what does she do?
So
Right.
why so many more stops if you're not actually like recovering or getting any successful hits?
All right.
on
Well,
these people?
let's think about
The statistical analysis.
areas that you're in, right? So
Okay,
higher crime.
I'm going to cut you off real quick. And I know this is mean, but I wanted to tell you that this is my frustration with this debate, is that earlier you were very happy to throw out 2 10,000 numbers at me, and I just threw out one number at you. Now you're very interested in a more qualitative approach. Now you
No,
really
there's no
want to
statistics.
contextualize.
No.
Well,
There you go. So Opus says the worst debates I've ever seen, but like that wasn't whatever. Okay.
I gave you the raw numbers, and now you want to talk about the
the
neighborhood. So if you want to talk about them, that's fine. I welcome that conversation, but I just want to point out what you've done here.
Raw
Okay.
numbers again. We're going back to raw numbers again in that more.
Exactly. So it's say Lisa's consistent misuse or misunderstanding the arguments has caused her to lose this debate. I wonder. This seems like a channel or a specific creator that does this, but I've never seen this before. And actually, let's just go. And so again, the idea here is that when we break down things in this way, we're able to have a visual understanding of ideas. And so I mean, you could have left, man. Nobody's forcing you to stay. But you can see exactly. You saw it happen in real time. That even if you're right, even if you there's something, even if somebody's debating that you agree with. Oh, is Destiny sexist for taking it easy on Lisa? 57% said no. I agree. This will happen to you. This will happen to you. This will definitely happen to me. I'm in the space. But the less that the more that you can inoculate against this type of bullshittery, getting stuck in a hole and not being able to move the conversation anywhere. You have to be able to engage those discussions. You have to be able to be aware of when those discussions are at that place, so that both of you or all of you, whatever the case may be, can be like, okay, we're spiraling, we're circling, we're looping. Let's try to take this from a different perspective. Let's try to do this, that, the other. So I hope that it was at least a little bit enlightening for those of you who said that you were very, very confident in your debating skills. I assume this did nothing for you, but if you are not a perfect debater, I hope that this brought you a little bit of understanding of how to put think about this as you're thinking about it or talking about it in real time. Let's shout out our comment of the night. Destiny sexist, no. 57%, no. And of course, let's say thank you to Basil, the Pump and Seagull for the Canadian, and the sponsor of the stream, our boy, once again, Unwanted Foe. Thank you so much, guys. Very, very, very much appreciate you guys. Yeah, lots of things to learn. Lots of things to learn, and in every conversation. Exactly. That is exactly what I want you guys to take away from this. That, you know, yeah, right. I'm in my heart, or just decide the other's entire belief system and ban them right away. You could, but again, this is why we want to be able to do this, because as much as this, people doing this is stupid, it is what it is, and they will do it. And so we have to be able to be better than that. If we want our ideas to be spread, if we want our principles to be held by other people, then we have to be the ones who can defeat destiny. If this is how we argue, it ain't gonna go well. And I mean, destiny's certainly not the worst of them by any stretch of the imagination. But lefty's a lefty, you know what I mean? But no, I do think it's important not to just have the right answers, but to be able to communicate. And I hope that that's clear from everything that I do. But I'm banned. My heart says love it. Thank you, sir. Let me make sure you got the link here. If you want to join our Discord server. I know you've been dropping it, but he's over on Twitch. Yeah, the party never ends over there. It is free to join. That we do have the free chat channel. If you want to be part of the entire thing, you can sign up as a YouTube channel member, or if you don't really use YouTube, if Twitch is more your thing, send me a DM. We'll figure it out and get you in the after party where we are headed right meow. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, guys. I wasn't sure how this was gonna go. But I think it was a lot of fun, and I do think it was valuable. So let me know what you guys, the replay gang, let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. I had fun. I know it was a little different, but I had fun. So thank you guys once again. I hope you did as well. What's the word? Choking on my own spit. Once again, I've been your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, I am out of here. Peace.